What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the BizDad podcast recap episode for this week. We're going to be talking about running a business this week. So you're going to listen to a bunch of recaps, a bunch of people talking about how they run their business, different things inside of their business. So please listen intently, take some notes, run back to the episode if you find something that strikes you that you just want to watch the full thing. We have some amazing guests with incredibly successful businesses, very insightful business acumen. So please jump back and listen to the full episode if you see something that really strikes you. But subscribe, all of that stuff. Keep listening to these recap episodes that we have for the month of December. But have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. We'll see you all next year.
Let's go into your first business at 19. Talk to me about what that looked like. How did you build said business? What was your involvement from your parents?
I was introduced to Tony Robbins when I was 16 years old.
Ooh.
Yeah, I had the cassette tapes. I had the CDs. And here is this story about a guy who was a life coach at 19. And I had these delusions of grandeur, and I said, well, if he can do it at 18, why can't I do it? And so I said, okay, fine. I'm going to be a life coach. And this is during a time when no one knew what a life coach was.
Mm-hmm.
So I would explain things and how I'm a life coach. So are you a therapist? Are you a consultant? What is it that you actually do? And then I would have the flip side. It's you're 19 and you're going to tell me about life. All right, Junior, go.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, wait, Tony didn't cover this in the book. He didn't. And then I ended up making up this whole approach. It's okay. You're 45. Has life become more complicated for you as you got older? I'm here to provide the simplicity that you had when you were.
Yeah.
Oh, that was good. Okay, good. And so I ran with that. Yeah, that was pre-intended. Yeah, I started there. But then I also realized that it's okay. I know very little about life, so I don't feel that I should start here. Maybe I should see how the world works first and where I belong in the world before I go back into this. And as luck would have it, fast forward 20 plus years, I'm going back to it. You don't know what you want to be when you grow up, and yet you do know. Ever since then, there's always been this knowing about my ability to teach, my ability to simplify, and my passion just to see people. One thing that lights me up is when I see the light bulb turn on in somebody, it's like, oh, they got it. Okay. Now I can get all the feels. And fortunately, I'm now back in it. So that was the first business right out the gates, knowing nothing about business. And I would have these business cards. That was called Success in Progress. And so SIP landmarks. And I had my business cards and I would post them up on Starbucks billboards. Like this was before internet. So I would find these billboards and I would just post all these cards all over the place and people would just call me. And I'm like, oh my God.
How many clients did you end up getting at that age?
5, 6.
Okay. No, that's a win. That's big.
Yeah. $75 an hour for a 19-year-old back in 2001 and 2. And this was huge for me.
Yeah. That's awesome. And what kind of lights did that turn on for you? Like you mentioned enjoying seeing the lights of other people getting turned on. What kind of lights did that turn on in you to actually get these clients at 19 years old, $75 an hour, and starting to build your own little thing? What, obviously you alluded to trying to go out into the world, learn a little bit more about what's going on before continuing on it. But that obviously lit something inside of you as far as working for yourself. So what kind of lights turned on as you were figuring all that out?
Just for reference, my first job was working as a store clerk when I was 15 years old, or not a store clerk, a video store rental place. So for anybody who's under the age of 30 right now, we used to have to go to a physical store to rent movies. And so I used to be one of the clerks there. I was making $6 an hour. So from that to 75 in 3 years, it's okay. I'll actually rewind even further back. My mom was actually the inspiration for me to be an entrepreneur because she had her own businesses and I worked for her. Okay. And she would introduce me to some things and I'm like, how are you able to pay me so much money for very minimal work? And she goes, I have my own business. I can create my own rates. And I'm like, wait a minute. I see everyone have these 9-to-5 jobs. This doesn't make any sense to me. And so she was the first introduction to entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And then when I was able to start my own business, I had a 401k. When I started my 401k when I was 18, when 19, I took out my 401k and I paid the taxes of taking out your 401k at age 19. I bet it on myself and I started this business not knowing anything. And it's okay. I need to learn more. but I know I'll never go hungry.
Mhm.
Because as long as I have breath and as long as I have the ability to communicate, I will always be able to provide value. And so it was just this aha moment where I don't need to depend on anyone else. That can be an option for me to get a 9-to-5 job should I choose to. But if this next business doesn't make it, the next one will. And Mark Cuban says it. It's like you can fail. You only need one. You only need one great idea to hit. You can have 100 of them. One of them has to hit. And I'm like, okay, I like those odds because the only way that I can lose then is if I quit. And so I just need that one to hit. And there's no way that I'm going to stop until that one hits.
So you're running business stuff and you're trying to be a dad at the same time. How has what you've been learning about, like we've talked about all the stuff you're learning about as a dad, applying there. What of that have you been also applying in your business side of the house? Obviously starting the coaching back up again, like that's one big thing. But as far as like tactics and procedures that you're doing inside of your business that are similar that you've modeled after being a dad.
Okay, this is not a shameless plug-in because you asked the question. But I actually wrote a book on this.
Uh-huh.
So in essence, if anyone cares, it's called Parenting a Business. If you can raise a child, you can run a business. Find it on Amazon. And it's nothing more than a how to start a business using parenting terms.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And what ended up happening. So again, started my first business when I was 19. Didn't actually create a successful business until after I became a dad.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work? My son comes into the world. I just started my photography business. Everything that I had accumulated in terms of knowledge for business development, I applied to parenting from operation systems, aka diaper bags and routines, budgeting, time allocation and time management. I started doing that more as a dad. Mm-hmm. And how you do anything is how you do everything. As I started doing it more effectively as a dad, I started doing it more effectively as a business owner. If you can get your 5-year-old to listen to you on a semi-weekly basis, you graduated from business negotiations 101.
Yeah.
Because if you can get someone who has more leverage on you than any client will, then you can convince a client to buy your product or service. It's stuff like that. Again, the secret to scaling your business is your diaper bag. Why? It's operation systems. Why? Because when you're a first-time parent, you bring 6 bags that has the kitchen sink, 10 forms of formula, 15 diapers, 20 wipes, and a partridge in a pear tree. And then over time, you start predicting what's going to happen. And then you just go in with the smallest of bags because what's going to happen. That's operation systems. The correlation between parenting and business is infinite. And even business owners will say, this is my baby. This is my child. Yeah. It acts the same way. How do you, as you teach a child to grow up to be 18 years old and grow up on their own and have them be a positive role model in society and exist in society, so can you create a culture within your business so the business can work without you. Like there are all these parallels between parenting and entrepreneurship if you choose to. And so how did I do it? How did I parallel the two? I did it with everything from time management to how I communicate to how I sell. Jeremy, I can't negotiate with my clients the way I do with my kid because with my kid, I bribe them with cookies and iPad time and going out to the park. I'm like, oh, okay. So you don't bribe your client by having a buy one, get one free. We will pay the shipping and sales tax and things that matter to them. Oh, I never thought about that. So treat your clients like your kids. What are they motivated by? Give it to them as an incentive and watch how they buy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
However, I try not to motivate my kids with too many cookies because that turns into a problem as well.
Principle, yeah. In principle, not in repetition.
Of course, you want to do the same sale in your business over and over again. Right. Because that's going to get rather old. So if you're new clients, you're going to see right through it. I think it was the My Pillow guy got sued for something like that, right? Because it was like always the buy one, get two free or something like that. And they were like, no, you're really not doing that. He got sued over that. But You can't do the same thing over and over again. There are so many parallels because I look at it from the other direction. Is if you can manage a business, you can manage your household. And you started from the other direction saying, if you can manage being a parent, you can manage a business, because there are so many parallels between the two of those and how you can operate and what you can do, and like the sales tactics from one side to the other, and the operations and the core values and all of the stuff that goes into running a business is very similar to running a household and managing that. The key leader engagements between the husband and the wife, and making sure that the household managed, just like the CEO and the COO having good conversations, and how all of this stuff gets ran. It's phenomenal to bring those two together. What area would you say that you are struggling with the most in your business at the moment?
It's funny you should ask. So there are three. So Tony Robbins talks about 3 types of business personalities. And you need all 3 in order to be a successful business, but you can't be all 3. At most, you can be 2 out of the 3. At best, you should be 1 out of the 3 and then have the other 2 in-house. The first one is the artist. This is the front-facing person who provides the value directly to the consumer. If you know who a guy named Steph Curry is, he's the artist. His art is to dribble so fancy that people twist their ankles and then make 3-pointers from the parking lot. And the value is going to the audience or the crowd, who gets to say, we won, even though we didn't do anything. You did all the work, but we paid for the ticket. And so we can say that that's the value that he provides. He provides them an excuse to feel a certain way. Second type of business personality is the manager leader. They are not directly in charge of providing the value to the consumer. They are there to manage the artist. So in this example, that would be Steve Kerr. So putting the artist in the best position he or she can be in order for the artist to do what they do best. The third is the entrepreneur, in the truest sense of what an entrepreneur is. Anybody who's listening, if you just start a business, this does not necessarily make you an entrepreneur in the original context of the word. The entrepreneur's main role is to make sure that the business is profitable, period. Okay. This is Joe Lacob. Buys the Warriors back in 2010 for $600 million, turns it into a $4 billion franchise in 10 years. He brings a new stadium to San Francisco. Steve Kerr didn't do that, or Steph Curry didn't do that. Joe Lacob did. So why do I say all of this? Because in my business, I am the entrepreneur and I am the artist. I am struggling with the managing leading. Meaning that if I had somebody who didn't want to be front facing, who can manage my schedule, help book engagements, help create the products, do the website design, do all the social media stuff aspect, they manage me. I can make sure that the business is profitable and I can be front facing and provide value to the consumer. So,
yeah, I love that the concept of that. It's 3 different business personalities. Is that one of the things that he talks about in the, what the heck's it called? When he's got the
business mastery? Oh, yeah.
Business mastery, yeah.
I've done it 3 times.
Oh, must be good if you jumped on it 3 times. You can find yourself one of those managers, leaders inside those groups. And what are you doing to try to find one of those people? How are you engaging with them?
To be completely honest, I thought about this a long time ago, and then I looked at my business literally like 3 days ago. And I was doing a deep dive and I realized, wait a minute. Dan Sullivan wrote this book called Who, Not How. The question isn't how do I get this done, is who can get this done for me? And then piggybacking off of that is another book by Keith Ferrazzi called Never Eat Alone, which is talking about networking. So if I combine these 2 ideologies, then I think, okay, my next order of business isn't necessarily to do my own website or to do all the things that I know need to get done. I need to use my networks and find the person who loves to do this, never wants to be in front, but wants to support the face of a business, who wants to be part of something that is meaningful and aligns with their values. And I know that there's going to be a ton of money on the back end, and partner on this. So in essence, now that I am aware of this, my energy is going to go towards finding the person who can, I know, like I need to, in order to hit a target, you need to be very clear what that target looks like. So creating the job description, creating the ask, and then also the offer. I have a very blessed experience of networks where if I start to ask a series of networks, I am confident that I will find somebody, if not a number of people.
That's awesome. Yeah. I think the thing that I'll say there is that when we see a problem in our business, when we see a problem in our parenting, when we see a problem in what's going on with our kids, identify it, figure out what the best route is forward, and then execute on it. The problems don't get any better with time. The problems don't get any smaller with time. Your business doesn't get better by you ignoring that big problem. It's only going to get more discombobulated, and someone has to come in and figure it all out afterwards. When you have the manager leader being able to come in and say, you left me a whole bowl of spaghetti here, where if you can get it right before the noodles start oiling, problem is coming. That's where you really start to build that track.
I've started and failed a lot of businesses, and my observation, could be wrong, is that the number one thing that ends most businesses, it's not scandal. It's not lack of funding. It's not lack of customers, not lack of education. It's attrition.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to have, and again, this is where we question everything. You have people on one side that say, do what you love and the money will come. You have people on the other side say, don't do what you love because it'll make you miserable, blah, blah, blah. I tested both theories and I concluded for myself that I have to do something that I enjoy. Mm-hmm. Because as life kicks you in the teeth, as the unfortunate events of slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, whatever that saying goes, things are going to happen and it's going to make you want to quit. Mm-hmm. But if you still enjoy doing the thing, you're never going to quit because you enjoy it. And the money is going to be the byproduct of it. So this is why I introduced it to him this way, where it's like, no, you start with something you enjoy because now you are just living life and you just so happen to be making money as a byproduct.
Yeah.
So that's how I approach business. And so what are you interested in? Let's start there. And, this is actually how I was going to say, and this is actually how so you talked about how you went, if you can start a business, you can raise a household. And I went the other way. And the reason why I wrote a book about it was because I wanted to promote entrepreneurship to parents and saying that if you actually want to, and you've never done it before, you actually can. All you have to do is start with something you enjoy because you already enjoy it. And that's the secret sauce to all of it.
The summer after I got divorced, I was sleeping in my buddy's basement and on my parents' couch when I had my kids. And so my whole world collapsed. And that's where I think I started to understand the need for doing more and being better, not being at the mercy of an employer and having a skill set or education that really allowed me to jump jobs. I didn't know what all that meant at the time. I just knew that I needed more skills. I needed to have more marketable skills to do something. And so at 28, after I got myself out, I got a great job working in another factory, but I was making really good money. $120,000 a year working in the factory. Did that for a couple of years, met my now wife. My life became real stable. And then I decided working 60 hours a week for somebody else was no longer for me. So I took a different job at 30, 31, working in a power plant, working swing shifts, but the plant never ran. It was like, ran 4 or 5 days out of the year. It was like a plant that started up just for like peak seasons. Okay. And what that did was it gave me all the freedom in the world. And so for those couple of years that I worked there, I picked up another job working in a hospital, working in emergency management, doing some disaster relief work. And then I went back to school and I finished my bachelor's during that time and then almost finished my master's before I left that job and started my career in occupational safety and health. I don't know. I was like 33, I think when that started. I'm 40 now. And quickly moved up the ladder there. Finished my master's. I went from an engineering position to manager position to business unit manager position to corporate senior manager to director, and then eventually head of safety, senior director and head of safety for a huge food distribution company. And I left that job almost a year ago. So the beginning of June 2022 was when I finally retired. Left. Yeah, it's been
all right. So there's a whole lot in there to dig into.
Yeah. And so 5 years ago, I got married. It's funny that I suppose that's the really important part of my story is I was on this trajectory and I just knew, hey, I got real disciplined because I had grad school and I was working full time and had kids taken care of. And I got addicted to this like momentum, just driving forward. I got all these certifications. I did all these things before I knew anything about entrepreneurship, but that discipline and that drive to like hope, like I went from a lonely, like entry level position to heading up the entire business's function within 5 years. And so what that did is set this entrepreneurial journey ablaze. I got married in Puerto Rico 5 years ago this March. And that really was like, I had a friend that was investing in real estate. I had another buddy that was a contractor. My dad was there. We're standing on the beach on this beautiful hill. And I thought, man, this is the only time in my life I'm going to be surrounded by all the people I really love and care about in a situation like this, where we're just having a good time. Everybody's here to have fun. We just get to enjoy one another. And that's for me, I left there and thought, how can I recreate that and live life kind of on my own terms to have more of that? Because it's never going to happen again. And that's where the next chapter of my story launched.
So you want to niche much more into the HVAC and plumbing and try to build that out to be obviously much larger. Is your desire to keep the Batteries Plus franchises as well, or do you want to grow those too?
Yeah, right now we do have a growth strategy. We're on a pause this year, but next year we're going to look to acquire again. For me, like that's my vice president and general manager. Most of that he can take on himself. And so part of his equity building in that business and we'll be focused on the growth of it. And so my hope is, and we've been working together since day one now, and he's promoted multiple times, is that he's been with the business 16, 17 years, that he just continues to run with that. And we really enjoy that business. It's really a fun business to be a part of. We've had a lot of success, not only with acquiring, but a lot of success in the business itself. And the boys work in it. And so for me, like it's high value, low headache, and thought in mind. It's like one of the things I don't really ever see getting rid of. But like my attention needs to be here on building this because it's far more complex. There's a lot more variables, and we got a lot of growth ahead of us. And so I really enjoy. I think one of the things that was most powerful that I heard Daniel say is I really love being the CEO. I really love running business, and I feel the same way. Like I really enjoy running business. I don't enjoy like getting into weeds and dealing with all that stuff. The strategy, developing people, setting our culture, setting our vision, and inspiring. Those are all things that I really love to do. It's just, I think all the hiccups I've had with it over the last few months, I was like just down and out. Like, damn it, I keep having to put money into it. Got people leaving, systems aren't working. And I'm like, screw this. I just want to do better. So like the last week or so, I've been like, okay, how do I make this work? And then last night I was just like, yeah, absolutely. I need to stop negotiating with myself on whether this is what I want to do or not, and stop finding distractions and just focus. And so it's easy for me to say today as I'm motivated, right? But I am making moves to get everything else off my plate so I can just focus here. And those moves have been being made for months. So I'm real hopeful that I can free up some of my time, spend all my time here, and get back to vacation.
What do those moves look like for you to get some of that stuff off of your plate so that you can focus on growing this to 50 million?
People, man, right? So I think that in my Batteries Plus business, we hired a fractional CFO. We have a full-time accountant on staff. We just promoted our GM to vice president and gave him a bunch more responsibility. In the HVAC business, the same. We have another acquisition coming up during about 6 weeks. And so I've been doing some interview for a director of ops who would eventually become like the general manager or the vice president and oversee everyone in the shops. We hired a fractional CFO. So we're hiring. I think people is at the end of the day, I need to delegate. I hired an assistant earlier this year. We have another bookkeeper as part of our staff as well. Just being able to push off all of the tasks that I'm either not really great at, don't really enjoy, or really is not the highest investment of my time. I think it's key. So finding good people, hiring good people, and being able to delegate effectively what I'm doing to them is the most important part for being successful now.
What kind of strategies do you have behind hiring the people and defining what the positions are going to be to know what you want to hire out?
Yeah, that's good. That's good. And I should probably use a firm, but I spent a lot of years in corporate America hiring and recruiting and developing. As once you get to a certain level, 80% of your job is really just developing your team, setting direction. And so I feel like I got really good at reading people and finding out whether I can work for them. So now I rely on my network a lot for leadership type positions. And rather than going through an interview, like my time is spent, I just want to get to know that person. Can I align? I'm much more concerned with, hey, what's our chemistry? Are you going to, are we going to be able to put that rather than focus so much on the resume and how you tend to show up in there? I want to get together. Let's have lunch. I don't even care if we talk about this and what's going on. I just want to get to know you and see if we can gel or not. And some of your weaknesses and some I can't. And the ones that I can't, and then it's about my team again, it's usually a path. I'm looking for cultural and attitude fit much more so than I'm looking for skills in most of the, especially my senior.
Yeah. That's the same thing that I try to look for. That's one of the things that EOS talks about all the time too, is if they're not a core values fit, you hire and fire based on your core values. So the core values should represent who you are and who you want your business to be. So if you're not filtering people through that lens, then you could very much end up with somebody who's got the complete wrong core values and does not fit. That chemistry is never going to be there. They may be funny. They may have a great resume. They may have these things that make them sound personable, but if they don't match your core values, then they're not going to match the company for long. I'm completely with you. I'd much rather sit down and have lunch with somebody and know who they are before I hire them than sit at an interview and read their resume. I think there's a time and place for the resume, but at the same point, there's a whole lot more to the person than what's on a resume.
I agree.
I think I'd be overlooked from a lot of jobs based on my resume has changed a lot over the last few years, but I think that there are so many things that would be overlooked, especially if you look at a military person. That's where I really started to go, man, how do we, as a military guy, there's one of those, they send you through a class to try to help you build your resume to make it look like it's a corporate. It's like how to make what you do in the military sound corporate. And it's never successful. I don't know. I've never seen one successfully come out of there. And it's okay. There are a ton of things we could put in there, but for some reason we don't do it well. But man, oh man, some phenomenal leaders that are able to work through any set of adversity that's thrown at them for on the military side. But
yeah, no, and I appreciate you saying that because that's the route. So the director of operations position that I am working with a veteran-based nonprofit that places special operators into leadership positions. And so my interview happened to be local, fortunately. The last one,
nice.
He is a 20-year vet and just getting out, pivoting and trying. For me, like when I think about the structure and the discipline, the process, I think about all the things that the military does well. I think those are things that make a person like perfect and to understand all of those things. And this person can really take my chaos and integrate these ideas into business. And that's really what I want to need. And so for me, it's perfect. And it's definitely the route like I am going because I think that there's the underserved community for one, because too many big companies. One, I don't think that come out after 10, 15, 20 years are a great fit for corporate bureaucracy, corporate America. You get lost.
That's tough. Yeah.
I think coming into a smaller business where there is purpose and you can really affect change and be a part of something. I think there's a ton of value. I think it works on both sides. It works as the entrepreneur needs somebody like that, and the vet needs to have something more than a paycheck. Especially if you've done 20 years, like, I don't really need a paycheck. I need purpose. I need to know that I'm getting
purpose
and change every day and be a part of something. Yeah. So I was sold. I think it makes a ton of sense to me, and so it's the route that I'm going to try to go for most of my senior goals.
Nice.
What are your keys to success in saying, hey, like this is how I actually implement the things that I'm taking back from these events?
Great question, Adam. I have been taking, I'll just give you like a quick window into my world. And so when I came back from Lake Oconee, this is my journal. I had 9 initiatives from Lake Oconee that I wanted to do in business and in life for my family. And every single day, 9 initiatives was a lot. And it is, I'm still working through them. And I would look at them every single day. And in each day, I would say, am I moving the needle forward in at least one of these initiatives? And they're still ongoing. So the first one was we needed to hire an integrator at work. So that was the number one. And we put who can help us with that? We want to set up a holding company. So we're going to restructure our existing company and streamline to get ready for acquisitions. And we needed some better financial data. So we were working with a financial consultant to help us with some financial dashboards. We wanted to get a business line of credit in place. I wanted to get a personal line of credit in place. We wanted to do our business succession planning, the estate planning, and the ownership transfer. We wanted to get that done. We were almost through all of our personal estate planning. And I'd recommend to any of the dads out there, get on that, get to that. That was a big topic in Lake Oconee, was get your personal affairs in order. If you love your family and your children, do not mess this up. So we put the pedal down on that. And we were about 90% done on all our wills, trusts, medical directives. And we just have to get some beneficiary form signed on all the accounts. So they go, they trust. We signed up with a new financial planner so they can help us personally and with the business, because they're really tied closely together. That was a missing component to our life planning on the business side and personally. And then we wanted to implement EOS. And so every day I said, what am I doing in these areas? If I knew if I kept moving the ball forward on these 9 initiatives, that things would change in 2024. So I'm hoping to be on 7 to 8 in 5 years. And
Nice.
Camille says 3. He says, Matt, you get there in 3.
I think you can.
But
I
he
believe
said, I needed, these are so I'm hoping when I get interviewed in 3 years on 7 to 8, I said, the year 2024 is the year that we made things happen, implementing all these things, doing all these things, taking massive action. So just been massive action, Matt, since I got back.
Awesome.
So
I love it. Yeah, I remember you mentioning the Massive Action Mat in Vermont, and I loved hearing it. It was really, because we have quite a few mats that are going on, especially at one of the dinner tables we were at. So Massive Action Mat and all the different mats going on. So I love it. It sounds like, what was that? October was Oconee?
October 20. Oh, October, this side past
October 23.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what is your need now to keep growing, and what is it that you're trying to do inside the business by the end of the year? What are your goals for this year?
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. So we are looking to continue to grow organically on our charter bus side, also on our shuttles. So that would be like maybe some corporate shuttles, some college campus shuttles. So we're looking to grow up those opportunities. We're looking to grow up the charter bus side. That would be like, let's say, college athletics and groups of people needing to go somewhere. And then also we're looking to grow up the things on the bus side, and then also on the maintenance side, continue to grow that. That is up. If you read Blue Ocean Strategy, that is a big blue ocean out there. A lot of equipment to work on. I never actually knew how big it was. And I started looking around. I'm like, wow, there's no shortage of work there. So we're trying to improve our processes in that department to be able to scale up more. So improve processes in there is going to be a big helper. Try to be innovative, try to be more innovative in both sides, the bus and maintenance, do better, do things better, faster and smarter. And then also our big thing is we're working with our business coach, and he is encouraging us to think bigger. And we're talking now about some acquisitions. And so we're trying to get the right people. Hiring the COO was the first real key piece to plug in. So I can start focusing on other things, bigger ideas, bigger things. And so we're trying to grow through diversification outside of busing. So we're trying to figure out what other businesses we would have a comfort level with that we could tuck in, or say, there's all these terms. You got bolt on, tuck in, carve out. There's all these things, but we're currently working on an acquisitions filter and our buy box statement, where you can't just say, I want to buy a business. It's very, there's a lot that goes into that. You can't just do that in your free time, or I've got a couple of minutes, figure out a business that I want to make. It takes a lot of time and energy, and we're trying to get the right team in place here to free up time to be able to be looking into that.
Yeah, I love it. And you and your brother, do you guys both go to the business coach?
Yeah. Yes. Oh yeah. He coaches us.
Oh, awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah. It's actually
That's
Frank's
phenomenal.
coach. It's Frank's coach. So we are modeling Frank's success, and we are just a few years behind him.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've been debating whether or not I should be looking at, so I want to personally buy a small business this year and or another apartment building, because it's just been a little exhausting the last couple of years, redoing a bunch of stuff with ADPI, the education company, and doing all of that. It's been a lot of fun, but it's been exhausting, and I haven't been able to put in the effort to go buy another business. I'm creating my buy box right now on what I want to buy and what I want to look at. I'm curious, when you're building your buy box, right? Because you already probably are pretty sure that you want something that are inside of that transportation realm, or are you looking outside to do something a little bit different? And of course, that changes. built on?
Adam, that's a great question. And so I would like to say that I had the answer. We're ready to go. This is our statement, but we are in the infancy stages right now. And the first thing was really just get the COO in place. And now I'm a very action fast paced. Why this needs to move faster, where we're moving so slow, but things take time. And there's like those 9 initiatives that I spoke about earlier. They've taken a lot of time, but we know what we want to do, and it's just about figuring out. It's a lot of learning. This is our first time doing this. We're going to investigate, build the buy box, and then start the process. And I'm very excited about it, and looking forward to going through the process.
Yeah, I want to challenge your thought process. You said it takes a lot of time for those 9 things. It's only been 6 months, and you've rushed through a lot of those 9 things. So I think your version of what takes a lot of time and what truly takes a lot of time might be a little bit different. Maybe it's because of your drive and energy. 6 months feels like a long time, but 6 months is pretty solid to have crushed through a majority of that list.
I'm highly motivated, and we're looking to take a lot of action. So the Go Runners guys have really been very inspiring to get going. Get a move on, and that's what we are trying to do. And I just want to really grow through diversification outside of bus, something outside of busing. Where is it totally out of transportation? Is it a little bit? Does it? Our niche currently is ground transportation solutions. So what kind of in and around that? But we'd also there's a lot of other reoccurring revenue businesses that are outside of busing that we would certainly entertain.
Yeah,
but it's certainly a learning process. I do not claim to be any type of acquisitions expert at all, but we know where we want to go, and we have the right who's helping us. And I want to say that all the business, huge, all the 9 initiatives on there, they all have a who next to them, and that was a big learning over the past year is who can help you with this, and you can't do it all yourself. And learning that it's not that you can't do it, but it's bringing who can help you do it faster, who can help you do it better. And,
and every time you hire somebody, it should be somebody that can do something better than you, and that's why you're hiring.
Yes.
So
exactly.
I would love to hire myself out of a job completely, because I always want, if I can find all the who's that are better than me that I could put in a position to make the company grow better. That's the point. That's how you know that you're building a good team. So I love that. And I'm struggling to remember his name. Entrepreneur. He's got Wealthy Kingdom and Wealthy, all of his stuff is wealthy stuff. And videos, he used to have multicolored hair and all this stuff. He used to be a professional baseball player. But anyways, I can't remember his name at all. But he's always starting up businesses here and there. And he says he has a ton of ideas and businesses, but if he doesn't know who's going to run, it goes in the garbage. He's not going to, because he can't be the one to run all the businesses and all the ideas. Right. I know how to build them and I know where they need to go, but I need to know I have somebody to run it. And that goes right into who, not how. And if I don't know, I don't need to know how to do it. I just need to know who I need to put in that seat to make sure that it's getting done right.
Yeah.
Because to your point, I'm not claiming to be an expert in anything in life. Not a dad, not in business, not in anything. I'm not an expert in anything. But I love to be able to talk to folks who know a lot more than me, which is why I started this podcast, so I could steal everybody's good ideas. But if I can hire people that know a lot more than me, can manage things better than me, then that's where I should be.
Yeah. Frank Smolin is an expert at that. If anybody is looking for expertise and learning and knowledge, I've been learning from Frank, and Frank was such a big EOS proponent, and and a lot of guys are as well. But what Frank's been able to do with EOS is amazing, and also giving him the confidence for acquisitions. It gives you the confidence. Hey, maybe I don't know about that business, or I don't know how to run that business, but you run the system, and you get the right people in the right seats, and you run the EOS system. And it gives you the confidence that you can be successful.
So I want to move into now your business. You mentioned that your dad was an entrepreneur and your stepdad and your mom did multiple businesses together. Would you say that, or do you think that the entrepreneur side of you was always there from watching that? Or was that something you definitely picked up after leaving the military?
It was an interesting point because I never really looked at it like that. I think I always had that kind of entrepreneurial spirit. I wanted things, and I knew I needed money to get them. I was willing to wait for paychecks. We had jobs all through high school and college. Even in elementary school, I would go into those $5 type of stores and buy sleeves of chewing bubble gum. Bubblicious or whatever. Yeah. And you get 5, 6, 7 packs of gum in one sleeve for $1.50 or something. And I would open them all up and to the individual pieces, dump them all into like a gallon bag, and at school for 24 cents a piece. So, but margin was great. When I was in high school, I think my sophomore year, I'm doing this people-to-people student ambassador program to Australia and New Zealand. There was a summer trip, and to along my way there, I was a very artistic family, and my mom big into crafts, and I like doing craft stuff too. So I made these grapevine, go to the hobby store, in a craft store, get the vine cones, like little mini Christmas trees and wreaths, and it would decorate them and sell in the teacher's lounge for $5,500 a piece. That's how I made it all the way to Australia. Wouldn't at least think back at my dad and my stepdad, my mom's businesses. When I was a kid, they just looked like every other office and building, very boring. I didn't understand what people did in there, and we're business people and we do business stuff. As a kid, I didn't understand. And I think recognize the difference between trading your time for money and just going out there and making it by my own efforts. And of course, it didn't really sink in until after the military. After my time in the military, it was more out of I struck up this relationship with this beautiful woman, and then I got plunged into my second tragedy, the hearing loss. There's cracks in my skull. It got a contracted bacterial meningitis. I was right back in the hospital. My mom and my girlfriend at the time, my wife, nursed me back to health. I lost all of my hearing. I was totally deaf and totally blind. And even though I'd have an opportunity, a chance to regain some of my hearing with a cochlear implant, it would take months before I didn't even be switched on. For over 6 months, I was trapped in my body. It was totally silent, totally dark, my whole world ending at my fingertips. I didn't mention this, but when you're totally blind, you also can't reset your internal clock, your rhythm to sunlight. So I have the sleeping disorder. And with the loss of my hearing, I also lost my vestibular balance, like ear balance, and doing totally senseless. My sense of humor, sharper than ever. At the time, I wasn't very humorous. I wasn't very fun to be around. But I was sitting there in my breakfast bars, feeling sorry for myself, thinking about the whole L Rod and the 15-minute party. And I'm like, I gotta get back to work. I've done this before. God has the same soldier's sardonic humor. And I've started speaking for years and talking about this triumphal tragedy and success. Through struggle, no despiting.
Yeah.
And here he is coming up and tapping me on the shoulder and says, "Oh yeah, do it in. Put your money where the mouth is." And the only thing I could do was try to get physically fit again, fight back this loss of balance. And I took the trekking poles that I was taking into the mountains, and I would use that to do like this weird crab walk thing, Daddy long legs thing, out to my mailbox and back. And then I got the treadmill gun, and I would just hit the quick start, like 5 miles an hour, or half a mile an hour. Was run the first increment. Yeah, I was holding over for dear life. And then I would just hit the speed up button once or twice, and then I would walk a little faster. And within a year, I was running my first marathon after the hearing loss. But in the time also, I decided I would take my focus off of me and redirect it outward. Thanksgiving was coming. It was around the corner. And I tell you what, I love Thanksgiving. Like I mentioned right before losing my sight, Thanksgiving, we're celebrating Thanksgiving all together. And then now I lost my hearing, and Thanksgiving was coming, and I was going to throw this huge feast And I started cooking desserts weeks in advance. I was making all this fudge. It was kitchen therapy.
Yeah.
It was necessary for me, but it was something that I could do to put smiles on other people's faces. If I could do that for them, then I could really put a smile on my face. And it's no more. I mean, we do which happened. Even for that freestyle story, and when people started, as I say, sneaking it out the front door, you don't have to be real stealthy around like a blind deaf guy. She started giving it away, and then people started coming back and saying, "We'd like to buy more of this from you. Can we do that? We've got a birthday party or a baby shower or something." The capitalist in me said, "Of course you may." So we started this fudge company. I passionate about sugar and I love an endurance runner. Last year, I became the first blind and deaf person to complete the Badwater 135.
Nice.
That means I burn a lot of calories.
Yeah.
Do I eat calories because I like to run, or do I run because I eat the calories?
Yes.
This business that we created, it afforded us to chase our other passions.
Mm-hmm.
I was now, by this time, medically retired from the military, but my major source of income, only source of income, was this disability check. I have a healthy distrust for our government. And there was strong distrust for Congress.
Yes.
They love playing with service members and veterans benefits.
Mm-hmm.
I did not want to be beholden them to decide my income. I wanted me to decide my income. So we started this business. So we wanted to buy assets. And the money makes money.
Yeah.
So we would buy these assets, and these assets would buy assets. We got into real estate. We started investing in Ohio, North Carolina, Tennessee, and here in Florida, where we live. My wife became a real estate agent. And we have long-term and short-term rentals. We do the hospitality there and Airbnb, and we fix up these unloved homes, give you some love. And one of the best parts about it is it's when you feed value into the system, that everybody wins. And this is what we're looking to do. We solve some problems. We make it so we're putting value into these communities and everybody wins. People who are selling the property, people who will buy on the contractors, neighbors, everybody wins.
I love that the beginning of your entrepreneurial time was just a fix for a problem that you were experiencing. Like you needed that therapy, that time in the kitchen, just working through, and like you rewound your time and went back to being a Navy cook for the Admiral and just started cooking in the kitchen and enjoying that. That turns into a business that then turns into multiple assets across multiple states. And I absolutely love that as a real estate guy myself. So I run an education company called Active Duty Passive Income that teaches military members and veterans how to invest in real estate, because I know the power of real estate and what it can do for you. And I want to share with as many military members, veterans, and their families how they can, not do what I did for the first 30 plus years of my life and just rely on that paycheck every 2 weeks to get you by, but to create a future for yourself that is well beyond what your VA disability or military retirement is going to give you. You obviously mentioned your business. It's earning you money. The fudge earned you money, and then you went and bought assets with it. How did you start to get the itch for the real estate side of it?
Where did that come from? It was actually, thank you, ADPI for Military to Millionaire.
Yes.
Early on, we'd somehow gotten these big corporate contracts, and we were cooking. I'm standing at the stove like 14 hours, 16 hours a day and making batch after batch. I realized I can't do this.
Yes.
I can't trade. I'm trading my time for money again, even though I own my own business and looked into investing. The first thing I thought of was stocks. It's the traditional way of investing. You get some kind of ETF or something, mutual fund.
Yeah.
And I linked to Warren Buffett and value investing. I read some books on it and started learning how to do it. And one thing is that being blind, learning everyone. It's one thing to learn how to read it like a financial statement. Reading spreadsheets and PDFs for a blind guy, is like playing Minesweeper on your computer. Oh man, it was a nightmare. So I also found out that reading these perspectives, and it wasn't boring.
Yeah.
I still invest in stocks, and I have a portion, the percentage of my portfolio in those kind of assets. I was listening to all these financial podcasts and reading books, and more and more investment recommendations started going towards real estate. And I started listening to Bigger Pockets and ADPI. And this is more my lane, taking control of my future type thing. Instead of investing in a company where somebody else is driving the bus, and say, oh, it's on board somewhere, and you just got to trust in the management. I can be the manager. I would own not just a paper share of something.
Yeah.
I would own the asset in a tangible sector. And then I learned all about the tax benefits and the fact banks want to partner with you. Just all these news that was learning about this isn't everybody doing real estate. I enjoy it more.
That's awesome. And I had no idea that the ADPI was one of those that you had not only knew about, but used our resource. That's phenomenal. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. The real estate world is, to me, one of the best ways. And of course, I'm a little biased because I run a company that teaches people how to do it, but it is one of the best ways to hold your value. Like, you've got a cash flowing machine that brings you in money and holds your value. It's not a stock that goes up and down, like you were saying, where if the CEO does something wrong or whatever, then the whole thing could just implode on you. If I buy apartment buildings, for the most part, if I've got a 100-unit apartment building and 10 people move out, okay, I've still got 90 people that are paying the bills and making sure things are going. And obviously I want to fill those 10 doors up again real quickly, but the ability to hold that value and hold the assets and just I love real estate, obviously. As you started going into the real estate world and building out your company, you mentioned already that you were trading your time for money, even though you're the business owner. Now you've also mentioned that you have other people making your recipes. What did you do to put a transition in place for you to be able to step away from the day-to-day in the business and let somebody else do that portion of it? How did that transition work?
This is another one of those entrepreneur hurdles, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Is those challenges where you're doing everything and trusting others to take over for you, even in different aspects of the role. And first, you're wearing every hat. And for us, we were making the fives. Michaela was cutting it, and we were boxing it. We were taking it out to the garage, and I got the whole going on in my garage. It was so funny that the treadmill next to the stationary bike, next to the rower, next to the shrink wrap machine with the conveyor belt. And then we're hand delivering these things to the post office around the country. It got to the point where we actually legally, by OSHA laws and all that, we were doing enough volume that we had to find a commercial kitchen. And the fraternity brother who does just that. He was the guy. His company actually made MREs and does those like little pack squeezable range, like dressings, that kind of stuff. He connected us with a larger candy company that makes great candy. And they would do all of the labor, all of the operations for us, supplies, ordering. We would pick the boxes and the containers out, and then they would make the fudge. And they would put it in there, and then they would ship it out. And we would pay them for all of that. And my kitchen was for making family dinners, developing the next recipe for the company.
Yeah, that's awesome. That transition is extremely difficult to go from running it all and knowing how everything works to handing over the keys of the Ferrari to an 16-year-old driver.
But the other thing to think about, though, is like asking for help. There's some reason we hate asking for help, but it's the same thing in owning a business where you're doing it yourself and then you have too much to do that you can handle on your own. If you want to grow or you want to get better, right, you got to find others, but it's not asking others for help. Same with raising money, right? They were not asking to borrow people's money. You got to look at it from the other side. People love giving. People love helping. And it's like, people need to help. You're offering opportunity, providing jobs with the business when it comes to borrowing money and providing an opportunity for investors who can't or won't, or whatever the situation is, would prefer just to put their money to work and offering an opportunity for them to grow their money. So with employees or vendors or whatever, I'm providing jobs. It's the same with real estate and any other business. They're providing opportunity.
Yeah. Finding the people that are your who's to fix the problems that you have as well, like the things you don't love to do. Right now, I'm in the process of finding somebody to help take over some of our more technical, like managing our CRM and various different things like that for the company, putting in all of this effort into the systems. And that is not the highest and best use of their time, nor is it something that they love doing. So if I could find somebody that does love to do those things and hire that person, then I am fulfilling their need to do those tasks. I'm giving them an opportunity to earn a good living and knock out a lot of the stuff that we need done for something that they love being able to do. It's like people managing their books. A lot of people don't like managing their books, but they do it because they think that, oh, I feel bad having somebody else do my, no. That person that loves doing books wants to do your books and they want to be paid by you.
Yeah. And you're taking yourself out of the bottleneck too.
Yeah.
And just think about me. I'm already, I've got ADD, Chinese object syndrome. Also, I told you before we started recording how I'm blind, I'm deaf. I've got one cochlear implant as my input.
Yeah.
That's 101. I mean, technology is amazing. It's 101 ways I can screw something up. And no matter how good I get at a particular operation, especially on the computer, somebody with an eyesight is going to be 10 times faster. So I already shouldn't be doing everything.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't be sharing the opportunity so we can all grow and run and reach all of our individual and collective goals faster.
You can find out what you are really good at and just focus on what you're really good at and hire somebody else who is really good at the things you really suck at. Somebody else has skills that you don't. Hire the person that has those skills so you could focus on your core abilities that make a huge difference in your company. So I love that you are making that, or that you have already made that growth and sharing that.
Sometimes your superpower might just be the one who connects all the dots.
Yeah.
And the one who puts the team together and leads the team.
And that's a huge superpower. Yeah.
I'm a psychotherapist. I was a pastor for 13 years. In 2017, I left pastoring and went full-time doing counseling work. And I started Daring Ventures is the name of my practice in Houston. We specialized working with addiction and trauma issues. I specialize working with couples. So I see couples from all over. Most of my couples fly in from out of town and spend 2 to 4 days with me, 6 hours a day, usually 2 to 4 days. So I do intensive counseling work most of the time after the discovery of betrayal. That's the work I do professionally. The practice has grown now. I've got about 22 people on the team and see people from all over the world and have an online presence and all that good stuff. I also have a podcast and a YouTube channel, all of that.
Were you focusing on the same type of clients before as you are now, meaning like trauma patients and especially couples right now where you're at? Were you focusing on those patients before and still currently?
I was. So a part of my story is that I was about 2-3 years into pastoring when I entered into recovery for my own addictive behavior. So I consider myself a recovering sex addict.
Okay.
And I can look back, we can get into this if you want, around just the way that was handled, the choices I made, the choices those who I was seeking counsel from, the way we handled that given my position as a pastor. I have lots of regrets about that. A lot of things I'd tell people to do differently. Bottom line is, I probably needed to come out with it back then and take a break and either be restored through a more official sort of means, but that's not what happened. And so I went into my own recovery process for several years. This is starting in about 08 and 08, early 09. And about 3 years into my own recovery, my therapist fired me as a client and said, you need to be doing this work professionally. And so I went back to school, got another master's degree, worked on becoming a licensed therapist, became a certified sex addiction therapist, all kinds of trainings, and started doing the work professionally on the side. Honestly, my thinking was, wow, it's not like I'm making tons of money as a pastor. If I could make 300 extra bucks a week, that'd be awesome. That was my mindset. But very quickly, the demand grew. At the time, it's certainly different now, but at the time, there weren't that many folks out there who had the clinical training that I had gotten and was continuing to work toward, but also had that Christian worldview and could come from a place of spirituality and faith. And here I am, I'm in this tiny town in Texas, and all of a sudden one day I get a call from a couple in Washington State. And so they just heard about me word of mouth from someone. And then not long after that, it was Georgia and then upstate New York, and it just grew, and which was great. And God was blessing it, but also some of my own stuff, the hero child and all this. As I was getting maxed out, I was still senior pastor of this church. That's a full-time job, but then just piling all of these hours and this other really taxing work, and started reaching a place of burnout. And that combined with, okay, it's time to get married. It was a sort of a perfect storm situation. I really believe that as leaders, our organizations that we lead, when we've been there long enough, they're a mirror of us. Right? So I'm looking at this system I'm leading, and where I see inadequacies, insufficiencies, where I see gaps, I need to turn that around and look at myself. And oh my goodness, do children provide an opportunity for that? There's some real come to Jesus moments I've had with myself where it's like I'm correcting my daughter about something, and as I'm doing it, I hear my own words and I'm thinking of something I did earlier that day. And I'm like, okay, message received, Lord. Thank you. And so recognizing that this corporation, this organization that I'm growing here, I can't carry it further than I am. I can't lead it beyond where I am individually in my own process, in my own character, my own integrity. That's huge. I think that's huge.
What has been your favorite part thus far about running the business that you started up?
Two things come to mind. So I guess I don't have one favorite. I've got two favorites, if that's okay.
No problem. I think I can handle that.
One is more externally focused, and one is more a little internal to the business. So externally, like I love seeing relationships change, marriages heal, and not 100%. That's unreasonable, but so many of the couples that we work with, I truly believe like the work that we get to do with them is going to change the trajectory of their family line. This is legacy making work that we're doing, and just seeing people radically transform. And I'm super excited. Just like 2 months ago, I finally figured out, after a years long process of taking what I do with couples in like a 1-on-2, like, this couple and me, or this couple and someone else on my team, and actually scaling it and having this online group coaching based program and being able to take it big, wide, and way more accessible to way more people at half the cost. And probably, we'll see when I run all the metrics, but I think it may even be even more effective. And that's just cool. That's been 7 years of working toward that, and seeing the beta group there and getting the initial feedback from the people who are participating is awesome, because I know this isn't just, this husband and wife, it's their kids and it's their grandkids, and it's just cool. It's whole communities, faith communities, and Anyway,
That's awesome.
so that's the external piece. The internal piece is, even though I left pastoring, I was never able to just turn off my pastor's heart. And I, to a fault, in fact, I know this about myself. To a fault, I'm loyal to my team, and I really care about their good and their development. And so hiring my team and investing in them and getting them trainings and pouring into them and mentoring them and seeing them succeed, helping use the platform I've built to launch them is super cool. It's just really meaningful to me to get to see people on my team thrive.
Love it. Yeah, it's a pretty rewarding experience, I would imagine, watching all of that happen and what you've built. What does the future look like? Obviously, you just gave us a glimpse into what the future kind of looks like in the business as far as the group side of the house. But what does the future look like? How big are you wanting to go? What kind of offerings are you looking to want to do? Open the door a little bit.
Yeah, we're continuing to hire on our team for those people who want to come and actually do in-person work with us. And we do a whole bunch of programs. We do a week-long program for women who discovered they've been betrayed. And we do family of origin intensives. We talked about those earlier. We do those from groups of men or groups of women. And so continuing to offer that and invest in a team who's able to do that work with more and more people, expanding the online program is going to be huge. I've got a book coming out soon. I can't even remember what the title's going to be, but it's something about couple-centered recovery, which is the name of my model. So that's coming out soon. And I'm really hoping to reach more people with less time because I want to be there for my family. I've got good boundaries in place right now around weekends and evenings. I really do rarely work an evening or a weekend, but even just during the week, like being able to pick up my daughter early from school or that kind of thing. I'm not quite there yet with flexibility without a whole lot of planning. That's where I want to be. That's where I'm headed. That's what I'm wanting to do. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. It's one of the benefits and downfalls of owning our own businesses and running all of our own stuff is it's, especially at the beginning, it doesn't go unless you're doing it. Right. and then as you're building it out, you can build it to where you want to go. And that's in the long run. Like you were saying, like looking at your employees' W-2s and going, wow, like it's so awesome that they're able to make all of that, even though I made nothing this year, or relatively speaking, but knowing that what the future actually holds. And it's one of the things I've like heavy as the head that wears the crown type of thing, right? Like I'm building this knowing that the future is going, so I'm looking for compound interest, not what's actually happening in my bank account right now, both literally and figuratively. But it's an exciting time being able to do all of that. And as we were talking about the dad stuff too, it was popping more in my brain of investing in our kids is very much a compound interest type of thing because we may not really see the return until they have kids. And then we're like, oh my gracious, I can't wait to be a grandpa. Like I wanted to be a dad since I was like 13 or now I am of 3 kids. And I can't wait to be a grandpa now because I just know that the return on that investment is going to be unbelievable to watch and see how my kids interact with their kids. And that's just really looking forward to that. If I recall correctly, you got your MBA after you graduated. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I got my undergrad out here in Colorado from CU Boulder, and then a period of time went by where I was working and work had taken me down to the Atlanta area for a few years. And while I was down there, I decided to get my MBA at Georgia Tech.
Okay. What led you to wanting to get your MBA and what were you doing in the between your bachelor's and master's?
Yeah. So condensed work story is when I started out in the workforce, I was in the financial services industry. I had been investing since a teenager and rode the late 90s boom and thought it was the greatest thing ever. Anybody could make money during that time. And I thought to myself, one day I want to be like a money manager, a portfolio manager of assets. And went into the financial services sector, got some of the licenses needed to do that work. A recruiter had called my house looking for my wife, actually, and they started asking me some questions about my background. So good on them from a sales perspective. And they said they had an open role that might be interesting to me. It's not in financial services, but it's in the tech sector serving the financial services space. I was like, okay, I'll listen and check it out. Next thing, I'm interviewing with this company and wound up taking this job. where I was in what I guess today would be called like a customer success manager type of role in my space, in the tech space, supporting a book of business clients in their investment accounting processes and reporting requirements that they had. And I tell you all that because at the time, I was starting to explore and pursue the CFA designation to become a portfolio manager, and took the first exam and passed that, took the second exam, failed that. It's very grueling, 3-part exam. And around that time that I was taking these tests, the financial crisis was upon us in 08, 09, and everything started to crater across many asset classes. I said to myself, I'm not sure I want to pursue the financial industry any longer. Maybe I'll stick with tech. So I wound up sticking with the tech industry, and it's served me well for the last 18 or so years.
Okay. Before I go into the MBA side and the tech stuff, I want to go back to the fact that you said you've been investing since you were a teenager. Where did you get that bug to want to start investing? How did that education come to you?
I ask myself that question because I'm not entirely sure how the dots connect. I know my uncle was a gold trader in New York on my dad's side, and that goes back a while. For some reason, at one point in time, and maybe when Home Alone came out when I was a kid, I fell in love with New York City, and I started to just learn more about New York and my family there. I have some sort of relationship in that city. And that maybe was one of the dimensions that helped influence why I had a passion all of a sudden for investing. And then probably some friends were also doing it. And they're like, hey, have you bought any stocks? And I was like, no, but I'll look into it. So almost any stock you could buy in the mid to late 90s would go up. And then I started to read Mutual Fund Magazine and some other financial publications to become a better investor. Next thing, I have an investment portfolio and still do to this day. It's obviously evolved and changed construct, but that's where it all began. My first stock was Walmart.
That's crazy. Oh, that was a wise move. What led you to choose Walmart?
It was just a well-known brand that seemed to be a durable business under any circumstance. I think I had read something about their business performance. So that's where I decided to put some money.
How do you think your experience in the MBA program helped you as far as your acumen in the business and the tech sector that you were in, continuing to run through that?
The MBA program, I think, helps in 3 important ways. One, if you go to a established brand school, a well-known brand that has global reach, you have an amazing network through that MBA program after you graduate. And then the MBA program I was with at Georgia Tech was made up of students not going from undergrad right into a graduate program, but who did their undergrad, went to work, and then came back to get their MBAs, the same industry, and who may or may not be in different levels of the organization that you're trying to get to or want a better understanding around. So the learning from the peers in class about their real world stories was another really important dimension to me. And then thirdly was the academic side of it and learning from case studies and some of the hands-on projects and things that you had to do from a teamwork perspective, from managing human capital perspective to building your financial acumen or hardening that in the process, I think are all the things that sort of came together by the end of that.
So does John make you do all the back end work in the business now because of that experience?
No, we have a lot of brainstorming sessions, and we're very complementary to each other in how we go about this. John has tremendous business development skills. He can show up and just ad hoc the entire conversation with no notes prepared or anything. And he just has that gift of storytelling, and he's got an amazing background. And we certainly share the importance of family as a centerpiece to what we do in life. So I've had a lot of fun learning from him. He was actually my executive coach before we started the podcast together. And he has taken me, and I've told him this, he's taken me outside of my comfort zone in ways that probably exceed any other human has been able to do, which has been fun for me.
That's awesome. The dynamic between you two, I'd imagine, is a lot of fun going through the business side of the house. But
yeah,
I want to go into that, into your guys' business a bit now. Like, how did you go from the tech sector to now doing a podcast with your former coach? Like, how did that happen?
So if we rewind to early 2023, that's when I engaged with John on some executive coaching work. I wanted to work on a few things as a team leader on the product side of a tech company. And so we focused on those. And towards the end of that engagement, John said he was going to be up in my part of town, wanted to meet over coffee in person. And we had done everything virtually. So we find a date to meet up, grab some coffee, head back to my house and sit on my couch, sipping our coffee, just talking about life. And I was like, hey, you want to start a podcast together? And he's, yeah, let's do it. And the next thing we're talking about topics we want to cover and when we wanted to record our first episode, and just started to create a Google Doc and put thoughts to paper and record our first episode, see how it went, and iterated a little bit on that, figured out the rest of the pieces. And here we are 30 or so episodes later.
That's awesome. So what was it like building that? Obviously, you just gave us a wide brush over of what that looked like, but you go from sipping on coffee to, yeah, let's totally do this, and building something that seems to be running pretty well at the moment. So talk to me about, how did you guys start those discussions? How did you guys work out like business plans? How did you guys think through all of that?
We thought through the production process, and fortunately, we had a contact who had been doing podcasts for a long time and had some success with a couple of them. So we leaned into that knowledge base to help us produce and distribute what we were going to do in a very professional way. And you were asking, like, so what's the path from going to 18 years in the tech sector to doing an online media company? There's some surprising similarities, at least for where I've spent my time in the tech sector. About half my time has been spent on R&D in the product side of the business. And then the other half has been on go-to-market, whether it be sales or partnerships and things like that. Melding those two things together into online media, which is a sort of a derivation of the tech space that I came into, I was able to apply those skills from those roles in tech to building a product, which in our case here and what John and I are doing, the product is the conversation. So how do we engineer high quality conversation around a theme, and then start to introduce different elements as you start to get some traction and people are paying attention and you're starting to build an audience. So we really approached it, and this is one thing I can certainly attribute to my time working with John, is getting 1% better every day. How do we focus on getting 1% better every day? Which over time, I think Adam Grant can be attributed to the person who like catalyzed or memorialized that concept in his book. But it's easy for people to achieve that goal, and over time, it has significant compound effects. So as we're putting our thoughts to paper and we're focusing on like the core of what we're doing, we need some technology, we need a theme. We want to know, we put some parameters around how many episodes we wanted to do. If we hit benchmarks, we would continue. If it was a total dud, we would shut it down. So we did have that in our mind. And then our producer helped us think about other things that help go from good to great in terms of podcast content. I don't know if that answers your question, Adam, but hopefully.
No, the process of starting a podcast, you know, I think right before we started recording, I was talking about how I think I've released 42nd episode is getting released on Monday at the time of this recording. So by the time this comes out, who knows what number we'll be on. But like the 42nd episode coming out, and I'm like, boy, I wonder, I should probably come up with something to do on how, like a direction besides just having a conversation. Because my whole intent was, let me sit down and just have good conversations with dads who are business owners, and how we can all be better at both of those things. Better business owners and better dad. Because my experience in the military was a lot of divorce, a lot of broken families, a lot of just stuff that I didn't want to. I want zero part to be of my family. I left the military so that I could stay home and be a dad and love that portion of my life where I was gone constantly before. So really that has been my whole intent this entire time, is just have good conversations and try to become a better dad. So I love that you even said you have a producer, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should do something like that. Have a producer. Maybe I should go get an MBA, and that'll tell me how to.
Experience is probably the best teacher. Yeah. And I think if you're not doing stuff and making mistakes, you're probably not pushing yourself into new areas for growth. And having the producer was helpful just to probably sidestep some landmines, but we still make mistakes on some of the things we do and evolve what we're doing. John and I, in our conversations, have done what we can to help share stories of veterans and support some veteran networks in other areas where people maybe aren't as fortunate or are transitioning into something that's totally unknown and scary. And how can we help them in that process?
Obviously, that's why it's called the second act. So let's dig into that a little bit. Like, how did you guys come up with the name The Second Act? Where are you guys planning to go now? Because obviously you guys are both in your second act, potentially your third act, but your second act, like the transition here. So talk to me about what that design was like and how you guys came up with that.
It wasn't the original title. We had a title that we threw out there and it wasn't a perfect fit. So we went back to the drawing board. And when we went back to the drawing board, it was around the time that I was leaving and John was maybe just under a year into his transition out of the Marine Corps and into civilian life, pursuing entrepreneurial things. And we threw out the second act as the title with Michael and John, and it just seemed to be the right fit at that moment about what we were experiencing. And it helped us shape the conversation less around some of the original topics we had and more around just being our authentic selves and the things that we're going through in the process in what we're calling the second act. And then as we're talking and iterating and evolving our conversation, we had the idea of introducing guests and guests who were on their second acts. It's a term that conceptually can mean a lot of things, but people will understand it whether they're on their first, second, or 10th act. Conceptually, it's, hey, I'm doing something different than what I was doing before. It could be a side hustle. It could be full-time entrepreneurship. It could be a passion project around something in the nonprofit sector, whatever it may be. But it's given us a chance to build amazing connection with individuals who have interesting life stories. And a lot of times they're just ordinary people who are trying to do extraordinary things in the second act of their life. And it's just been a lot of fun in that respect, in that storytelling, connection building process.
What's your favorite story thus far, whether it's one of the two of you or one of your guests? What's been your favorite story thus far? Or the most impactful story, whichever you'd like to go with.
I remember interesting things from each of our guests because you meet so many people in your life, and a lot of times they're transactional relationships, right? They're people you work with and you don't get to know them as a person. But in this process, we really are trying to understand their life and have them share important moments from their life that they can memorialize and pass on to others, good or bad. And then how they're thinking about doing something significantly different than before. I could pinpoint something from each of them, but we recently had a guest on, Martin Skay, who is in the business of solving the affordable housing crisis in Europe. He's living in Belgium right now and has come up with some design plans and gotten into an incubator over there, and shared that his dad had a significant influence on his life in some of his pursuits. And what's interesting about his story is his dad helped with the construction of the original World Trade Centers and shared his passion for architecture and city landscapes and the impacts of commercial real estate development on the surrounding areas and the second and third order effects of all of that. But then we had and Martin's in the later stages of his life. Then we've had somebody who's in his late 20s out of the tech sector that our paths crossed in that space a while back, Connor, and he grew up on a small farm in New York with his family, and he's just got the craziest life story that takes these unexpected twists and turns. He went to college at age 13, and then went back to high school to get the high school experience, and then went on to do some other things in consulting in the tech industry, and then he decided to start his own AI music startup. So everyone's got such a fascinating dimension to their life. And I think John and I pick up a lesson from each one of those discussions.
Yeah, I can completely relate as talking to a bunch of dads about business stuff. Everybody has a different thought on where they want to go with their business, what they want to do with their kids, how they want to involve them, what they like. and the stories that everybody has in their background completely. That's one of the reasons I like the long form side of the house, is I get to really go wherever it takes us and go as deep or as wide as we want to in a lot of these topics. But I love that you can get to dig into each of those things, because those transition points in our life tend to be, sometimes they're thrust upon us and we don't really have an option in some of our transition points, right? Sometimes they're strategically planned out and you know that you're going to be doing certain things, and then it's going to turn into act 2, and then you're going to do some certain things turn into act 3. So have you found in your own life or in the conversations that you've had that one way or the other tends to work out better?
I would like to think that I have some control and am great at strategic planning and everything pans out the way I think it's going to in my mind. But life teaches you it's mostly not the case. And as you get older, you just, or at least for me, in my case, I have learned to adopt more of a go with the flow, control what you can control mindset, and then just adapt as things are tossed your way. Yeah.
No, I was going through a Dale Carnegie course just recently, and one of the things I had us do is talk about the things that stress you in life and write it down on these pieces of paper, and like things you have little control over but you need help with, or that other people can help shape, or things you have complete control over. And then you put them on these whiteboards, or you put them on these poster boards in the back, and then they just rip the ones off the wall and say, you have to completely let these things go because you have no control over these things. How about you just focus on the things you have control over? Yeah, but I have some control over that middle category. Can somebody else ruin it for you? If somebody else can ruin it for you, right, then you don't have control. Like you think you have control, you want to think you have control, but you really don't. So just focus on what you can control. Like those are the things that if they're bringing stress in your life, adjust those things. The rest of them, learn how to deal with whatever's coming and move on. Like that to me has always been the best way to look at it. And maybe it's my experience in the military that you have pretty much no control over any part of your life whatsoever. So right down to you don't have control sometimes on when you can pee, let alone do something else in life. That's the only constant in my life has been lack of control and change. Those are my two constants. Here it comes. Who knows what's going to happen? What have you found has been the best way for you to adapt to those changes as life throws them at you? How have you been able to remain flexible enough to stay executing the mission, the target, and the goal of what you want, and not let those structural changes become faults in the groundwork?
I would say as life goes on, you just learn through trial and error and experience that there are so few things you're in control of. And maybe you learn that earlier when you're in a military setting than in the civilian world. But I think everyone comes to that realization. When you figure out that you don't have a lot of control on many of the outcomes, you can lower your expectations in a way that makes life, you can be more content with the direction of life. And I think contentment is a really important thing that people are overlooking. It doesn't take a lot in life to be content. In fact, as the old saying goes, many of the best things in life are free. So, some people find that through spirituality. I've myself really gotten more involved in mindfulness and meditation, thanks to some important figures that have come into my life over the last few years and helped me get into that mindset, whether you want to call it a Zen state or just being okay with how things come at you and the ability to adapt around those. That has just made things better. I don't know how else to describe it other than you start to see the world and what you do in it with your family and others differently.
As much as my mom taught me about adversity and determination and moving forward, she didn't have the skill set in business, wealth, investing, or any of that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when I got into the military, I did not have an easy basic training, even though the Air Force is the Air Force.
Yeah.
I did not have an easy path because I did whatever I wanted as a child. So when I folded my underwear in 4-inch squares and my TI dumped my clothes out on the ground and said, do it again, I was having a hard time with that lack of freedom and that kind of deal. So once I graduated, it basically taught me you have to go take whatever you want. You can't, nothing's going to fall into your lap. If you want to promote, you're going to have to study for the test. If you want to become an officer, you're going to have to go to officer training school and do the ASVAB and do all the FOQT and whatever you need to do, you have to get it done. And it taught me a perspective of don't think about graduating from basic training or tech school. Just think about getting through the day. And then you start not looking at the forest, but you're looking at one tree you got to knock down, and then another tree, and then another tree. And then you're a mile into the forest being like, I can't believe I've accomplished all this. And I just took small bites at a time. And that was the key to my success, was somebody saying, hey, if you want to go, do it. And it's that simple. It's not about, and I know I follow a bunch of these entrepreneurs and like Hormozy and some of these other guys, and no one cares about your feelings or if you're sick or whatever. You want to go get something done. You just have to go get something.
Did you have any mentors that were trying to push you along those routes as well?
I can't say that I have.
Okay.
And that's one of the things I'm trying to do with my charitable stuff is I have a bunch of military and law enforcement guys that are wondering, Mike, how do you write 2 books that are on Amazon and Barnes and Nobles? How do you own this real estate? How do you expand these businesses? And where the easy answer is to sit with somebody that's done it before, I've just literally my entire life has failed forward and kept on taking these half steps to get where I am. And then I'm like, hey guys, if you really want to know this, because there's a lot of people that you can say, hey, sit with me, shadow me, and I'll teach you. And they're like, oh, I don't know. Okay. And you can't impose it upon them. But the hungry ones that come to me and say, Mike, please, I'll do whatever you tell me. I have a Navy buddy. His last name is Williams. So we sat next together in the police academy. So we always made jokes about the military guys, whatever the case is. We were defensive tactics partners. So for the police academy. And then he calls me up and we're buddies, whatever, but he calls me up a few months ago and is Mike, I don't understand how this all works. Will you sit with me and my wife for a couple hours? Sure. Sat with him for 2 hours. And he's Mike, I don't care what you do. Just tell me what to do. And that's what people want to be told. And I said, put your house up for rent and go buy another house right now. Within 30 days, he had a house under contract and his house was up for rent. And he's like, a few months after that, he calls me up, Mike, I get it. I see the picture of how I can own 5 or 7 or 10 of these. And in a decade, I'll be financially independent. And I said, and now they want to invest in my restaurant with me because they know my character, they know who I am as a person. And I believe it is my purpose to get out there and teach people what they don't know. Because the education system doesn't teach, probably while you're homeschooling, doesn't teach you to be successful. It teaches you to be a 40-hour week worker until you're 65 years old.
To follow the instructions and just move on.
That's right.
Not think outside
Shut
the
up
box.
in color.
Not doing this stuff. Yep.
Shut up in color.
Yeah, I think that setting the stage for them to say, hey, you have to make the decisions. You have to go out and do stuff for yourself. You have to figure it out yourself. But also, because to your point, if you were a big disciplinarian and making sure that all that structure was there, and now all of a sudden you throw nothing but freedom to them, that could be really confusing, right? So there may be some easing of, and it sounds like you're already doing that. It's like where there's structure still, like you're working for me, there's still structure. Maybe now you're 19. It's time for you to pay rent too while you're living here. Good. All right, good. That's fine. Right. He's learning then still the structure, still how to move forward, still what it means to have a job and how to pay bills and do all the stuff. I think you need to give yourself a little bit of credit, right? If you're saying that just now, like Coney was in October of 23, something like that, right? So that's some big changes in your thought process and mentality since then. So sit back and enjoy the fact that you've made some changes and you're doing what you can. Give yourself a little bit more of that patience because we're recording it's April, right? So it's only been like 7 months. So give it time, man. This is going to take some work. But no, I think you're well on the right track. You're doing good stuff. So keep on doing what you're doing.
Granted, they've never been in trouble before, and they're very obedient, respectful, and I put in that groundwork over the last 2 decades. So I appreciate them in that respect. But of course, similar to you, like we're always looking for improvements, and you always want to find your kids looking for improvements as well. So it just might not be their time.
I'm still struggling with a little bit of that balance to make sure that I'm letting people do what they need to do in their position, but at the same point, not hovering over people. And say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
Sure. So as a prior commander, I use a lot of my business skills from what I gained from the military. And being an enlisted guy who has scrubbed urinals for lieutenants coming in to becoming the commander that everyone stands up when you walk in the room, I've always tried to be that servant leader, the boss, because there's just commanders that are, you only see them once for commander's call every month, and that's it. And I was not that guy. Like, I would be around the fire pit with my guys and smoking pit and all that kind of stuff, just talking to them and let them know, I'm here to serve you. What do you need? So even in the restaurant business, I try to explain to them, and I give them little words of encouragement before Friday night. Guys, it's Friday night in downtown DFW area. People are going to be out. It's going to be busy. We're going to mess up and we're going to be stressed out. And I try to use that mindset. It's just noodles. Like, I've literally tried to kill somebody with my bare hands. This is just noodles. It's okay if it takes 5 extra minutes. Everything's going to be just fine. And then they're like, I never thought about it that way. Yeah, because they're so caught up in the moment. Oh, I forgot this. My table's mad at me. I was like, guys, this is not life or death. Like, I've been in life or death situations. I've had people around me murdered. That's the apex of what you and I have trained to do. This is just noodles. So let's keep our composure. Let's do the best we can with what we got. And then at the end of the day, we'll all high five because we went through it together. So I try to encourage them and do that same thing with, even in the military as a commander, like, guys, y'all know me. I'm not the same guy that was here before. So what do you need from me? How can I help you? How can I make your job better? What can I go argue for funding for? That kind of thing. Cause they're the whole reason the mission works. I'm just a guy that goes to the meetings. So I tried to make that clear to them that I was there for them.
Yeah. I think that the servant leader thing is an absolute requirement. And I think that blends over just this similarly as a parent, but it's hard for us to think about it that way as a parent, right? How can we serve our kids? How can we raise them to ask for help and be comfortable with that and teach them where we need to be and all this stuff? It's funny. One of the guys that I worked with, he was a 160th SOAR guy, and I've told the story before on the podcast, but he's a special operations helicopter pilot. And he and I would be on meetings before, and we're like, dude, ain't nobody getting shot at today. It's okay. Like, it's no big deal. I was, after Iraq, Afghanistan, bouncing around all over the world, doing all sorts of crazy stuff that I've done. It's like, it's okay. This is no big deal. This is manageable. And I try to have that same concept with my kids. It's not exactly, I'm obviously not telling them, hey, you're not getting shot at today, buddy. He's 9. But at the same point, it's, dude, we're just here having fun. Like, it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things. Like with golf, right? My oldest loves golf. And I love being his caddy. I love being out there watching him golf. It's also time. It's so much fun to just be out there and seeing him with the other kids and playing. And I would love to just watch him just having a great time all the time, every time he's out there. But sadly, he's like his dad, where he wants to win. And he wants to drive towards that success. So if it's not going, it's a conversation where we have to go, hey, a bogey does not end our day. A double bogey does not end our day. That's okay. One round or one hole does not ruin a round. Let's make it happen. One penalty shot does not ruin a round. Let's make it happen. And trying to get that context. Not always easy. And it's not easy as an adult, let alone as a 9-year-old.
I have a short success story I can share with you real quick.
Yeah.
So, girl from my unit, before I retired, came into the restaurant. She works for a big company that's right near the restaurant. She comes in at least once a week, maybe twice a week. Very regular customer, brings all of her coworkers. So when my son first became a server, he was really busy. We were a full house and he ignored her table. So basically took the order, never brought out drinks, never brought out silverware. And then he was ashamed because he knew he was doing a bad job. So he didn't want to man up and basically say, hey, my fault. I'm too busy. I neglected you. He just ignored her. I found out I wasn't there at the time, but my manager called me and said, hey, we have a big complaint. She's from this company and she's here all the time. She's a regular. And she said that she's never coming back and all this other kind of stuff. So I call her up, not knowing who she is. And I said, listen, extreme ownership, the Jocko stuff. I was like, listen, everything under my restaurant and in my life is my fault. I totally apologize. I'm going to coach him. I'm going to suspend him as a server until he's spun up and make sure that he's squared away, whatever the case is. She goes, Mike, it's me. Remember me from your unit. And I was like, what? And she goes, I had a conversation with her yesterday. She came in. She goes, once you called me and you blamed everything on yourself, she goes, my level of respect totally changed for you.
Yeah.
So my son saw her yesterday and walks up and said, you remember how I gave you that really bad service at one time and you complained and I got in trouble and everything else? She goes, yes. He goes, I want to thank you for identifying these flaws, and I'm much better now than I was before. And I won Employee of the Month. And she's an NCO, and she was like, I'm so proud of you. And to show that you have these deficiencies, you worked through them, and now you're better, and you accept the fact that happened. And I shook his hand too, and I said, son, that's the right way to do business. Because I didn't ask him to go up to her and say anything, but that makes me feel warm in my heart that he's grasping some of these things, because I just want him to be better. I don't want him to stay in the same stagnant spot. And as everyone in our circles, all these entrepreneurs, you're either getting better or getting worse. And you have to put yourself outside of your comfort zone. You're not going to learn anything watching Netflix. Like, I don't know everything about opening up 51 restaurants, but guess what? I'm figuring it out. I'm reading FBE, business plans. And I just know there's, just like the analogy before, there's one obstacle in front of me. There's one rock in my way. Let me hammer that out, and then there'll be another one. And, 5 years is the goal. 10 years is the goal. All these little rocks are supposed to fall on my path.
Yeah. The obstacle is the way, I believe.
That's right. I just finished that book. And I'm reading Discipline is Destiny now.
Oh, who wrote that? I don't know that
Same one, Ryan Holiday.
Oh, is it? Okay. Discipline is Destiny. I'll have to write that one down.
And The Alchemist, if you haven't read that one.
Yeah, that one I have read. And I just started, my son has been crushing through them, but I bought him the kids' Jocko Willink books, which have been awesome for him to read. The Warrior, Way of the Warrior Kid. Is that what it is? Way of the Warrior Kid? Yeah. So he's on the 4th book now, the 5th book in the waiting. He's got the posters up in the room now. So I'm encouraging him to do more of that.
Training these franchisees on my core values and my vision, I'm going to be handing out extreme ownership. That's one of my core values. And The Alchemist, because they have to understand that bad things don't happen. They're supposed to happen, and you're supposed to overcome them. You can't just fall in the fetal position.
Yeah. You're not going to get better with no bad things happening to you. Correct. The only way to sharpening a sword, what it takes to sharpen a sword is to remove some of the metal. That's the only way you can sharpen a sword.
Right.
So it takes work. It takes effort. You got to remove that metal to make the sword sharp. But yeah, I know that you are on a time crunch, so I got to harass you a tiny bit while we're recording because I wanted to be in there to say, hey, I've got to make a short podcast because Mike's got to get on another call. Give him a hard time. But no, Mike, I greatly appreciated having you on. It was awesome. I love the work you're doing in yourself. I love the work you're doing with your kids. And I appreciate you throwing that out there for those who are maybe struggling with some of the things you struggled with before so that they can hopefully have an early start on it than you did and really get pushing on it. But again, it doesn't matter when you start. It matters that you do. The only better time to start was yesterday. So you might as well start changing yourself now and getting stronger and getting better.
My restaurant is Blue Mint Thai and Asian cuisine. We're going to be doing national franchises here by the end of the year. And part of my passion and my vision is to give back to local communities. So every location is required for our operating agreement that you're going to have a nonprofit organization attached to it, which must donate only to the local community. So whether it's your faith, animals, veterans, school lunches, it doesn't matter, but I want you to be cemented into the local community. And my goal with Traction and EOS and everything else is to remove myself in the next few years so I can run the charitable foundation only and focus on giving back to other people. Because I bought my mom a new car last year, and it was the best feeling that she was in tears. She had a 20-year-old RAV4, and just to drive up for her birthday and put a big bow on it, and she had no clue. Being able to give back to people is the best and biggest thing and reward you can have. So if I can replace myself doing the money and the business stuff and just coach, mentor, motivationally speak to other people for no charge, just to get the word out to you can be bigger and better than what you think you can, then that's my goal. I do have a couple of books on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. One last to do right here. One is Blue Collar Wealth, Basics of Investing. The other one is The Blue Collar Manual to Doing Epic. It's a mindset book and it has interviews with an Army Ranger that got blown up in Afghanistan, one of the first African-American Apache helicopter pilots to fly combat missions, one of my friends who's one of the head of human trafficking in the country.
Nice.
And he works in my police department, and he was a Bosnian war refugee, talking about his story of having no electricity and water for 2 years and having to smuggle out his whole family in giant suitcases through borders and stuff. And he's a no excuse guy. Listen, everyone's got problems. Everyone's got skeletons. Yeah. Are we going to blame our entire miserable life because of one thing that happened to me when I was younger? Or am I going to go kick ass the way I need to and make life the way I want it? So I try to surround myself with people like yourself, the abundance guys, and then people that I featured in the book saying, you can go be as big and as awesome as you want to be. You just have to be willing to do the work.
How do you grow and scale while you're doing all these things? Again, the importance of being productive, the importance of growing your business is fantastic. However, you have to take it one step further. The balanced growth method, which I teach in the Marry and Grow Rich book, which is coming out at the end of this year, is not to just focus on family and couple and personal, because now you'd be leaning outside and the business might suffer.
Yeah.
Right? It's easy to say those things. It's easy to say that I only work 25 hours a week and I take 16 weeks off a year to do stuff with my family and stuff I want to do and service and all. It's easy to say, but quite honestly, Adam, any business owner could do that and their business would just suffer. So I think the most important thing of how this plays back into business is, how do you get out of your business? You fire yourself. Now, I don't have an MBA. I haven't read every business book out there in the world, but what I've seen from the 1,500 plus individuals that I've interviewed, the ones who are successful long-term of having this balanced approach in life, we're talking 4 or 5 decades in business, they figured out how to get off what I call the playing field. Now, I played soccer, maybe you played football or basketball on the court or whatever sport it was for you. Maybe you need to get off the field or get off the court. Regardless, any team sport, because business is a team sport. Even if you are a solopreneur, man, if you're not all by yourself, other people are helping you and you've got virtual assistants or you have technology, regardless of what it is, you have help. There are basically 4 areas. There's 2 in offense, 2 in defense. The offense is sales and marketing. Defense is fulfillment and service. Sales and marketing, fulfillment and operations. Okay. If you don't have systems for your sales, you will fail. If you don't have systems for your marketing, you will fail. Systems beat habits every day. They beat goals every day. If you have a system, that's where you're successful. If you have a system for fulfilling for your clients, you will keep and retain those clients. They'll become raving fans. If you have a system for your operations, your support staff, etc. So what I suggest people do is figure out, where are they best at? Begin there. What are their 5 things at work that they should be doing most of the time? Outsource everything else, and then look at where they need to now begin firing themselves. What system do they need to then invent, implement, and then hire someone or outsource to? If they can get off of the playing field, they can get into the coaching lane. The coach stands on the side of the field, calls the plays in football, or pulls players in and off the field. They're truly the C-suite. They're the CEO of the company. Most business owners have just created a job for themselves, especially those of us who are in service-based businesses. Why? Because at the very beginning, we sold our clients and customers on us, not our system. Hey, I'm a trusted financial advisor. You trust me. Versus, I am building a team and we will help you, and this is our system. Now, if you fail to do, that's okay. You can begin now to tell your clients you're building the system. You have a system. You have a team. Build it now. The most balanced of every business owner I've ever met has figured out how to get off the playing field. The ones still stuck running around, trying to kick a goal and then running back and playing goalie, they will never get balance figured out, and they will tell me that balance is unreal. It's unrealistic. It's a farce, and it's a joke. And I'm going to say, show me how much you play on the field. And they'll show me. And I'll see the map. I'll see where they are all over the place. Until they become the CEO, they're not really off the field. Now, some will be okay being the CEO, and they'll want to stay there. That's fine. They at least removed themselves. Others will want to hire a CEO, or in this analogy, the coach, hire the CEO and they'll go sit in the business owner suite, where that's where you get the 3-course meal and you get to watch from bulletproof glass and cheer on your team and be in your best clothes, right? You're not getting poured beer on you from behind you and people aren't swearing at you. You're in a nice posh spot. Why? You're not coaching anymore. You're not practicing with the team, and you're not making the calls on who's coming on and off the field. You're not calling the plays. You're not calling the shots. Now you're just monitoring, how is my coach doing? How well did my team perform this year? From that vantage point, you now are a true business owner. Most business owners are either on the field or part-time coach. And some, the worst ones, are doing coaching and they're on the field. Because now they're so confused, they don't know who they are. But true business ownership is just that, business ownership. Once they get to that point where now they're in the business owner suite, now they can invest the revenue that's predictably coming into their business into other businesses if they want. Real estate, investment. Okay, great. But now you have an asset that exists without you. That's when you know you truly have a business. You can leave and go on vacation and come back and you maybe had the best year ever and you weren't really truly involved in most of those decisions. It's hard for business owners to do it this way because they are so attached to their product and they're so attached to their clients. But that's also the reason why they will be stuck as a do-it-all or a personal developer or a productive workaholic. And this is what I found from all the research we've done now the last year or so. The ones who have great long-term balance, not only have the family support, not only work on their own personal goals, but they figured out how to get out of the business and off the field so they can become true business owners.
You mentioned playing sports in high school and then into college. What did you go to college for? How did you get involved in doing what you're doing right now on the wealth strategy side?
Sure. I was the first one in my family, even extended family. I think I had one cousin that had gone to college ahead of me. So I was really one of the first in the family to go to college. And my parents just wanted to get me into college. They wanted to see me go to college. Neither of them graduated from college. I didn't have a clear vision in terms of what I wanted to do. My view of possibilities was rather limited as a kid because while my father was always there and he was encouraging, he was a contractor. All his buddies were in the trades. Everybody I knew was either in the trades or worked in the school system. And that was really all I knew. I didn't know any real estate guys. I didn't know any doctors or ad sales guys or attorneys. That just was not my community. I went to college and I decided, because I loved coaching, I loved being around sports, and I loved my father's schedule, but I didn't want to break my back the way he did as a contractor. I was like, I'll go be a teacher. So my intention when I went to college was to be a U.S. history teacher. That was the class in school that I enjoyed the most. And I was like, this will be great. I'll be a U.S. history teacher. I'll coach high school hockey if everything goes according to plan. And that'll be my life. So I went to Marist College in Poughkeepsie, New York, with the intention of playing club hockey and graduating to be a U.S. history teacher. And I don't know what clicked. Somewhere towards the end of my freshman year, I was like, you know what? Maybe I don't want to go to high school for the rest of my life. Maybe there's something else out there. And maybe it was just because I got out of my community and I started to meet people who had exposure to different careers, different opportunities, etc. Without clear direction, I switched my major to business administration with a concentration in finance. And that's all it meant to me. It did not mean a path in wealth management. It did not mean a path towards anything. It was just, I'll do business administration with a concentration in finance. And I got a minor in accounting, But I was not the best student. I was there to play hockey, right? I was there to play hockey and have some fun. My parents did not know to push me towards internships or anything like that. So I graduated pretty unprepared to do anything with my financial degree. And I did not have a job right out of college. So I spent that summer working for my father. I'm pretty sure that him and his brother, who was his business partner, made my life awful intentionally that I'd go out and try to use my degree. I can remember just being on some pretty awful job sites, doing things that were absolutely miserable, right? While they had a lull to get roofing shingles up to the roof, they'd have me carry them because I was the low man on the totem pole. So that was a pretty tough summer. And at the end of that summer, I said, I'll try to get a job in finance. And I did not know what that meant. I think the job
board back then was monster.com. This was 2004. So I was on Monster.com. I can remember taking the train into New York City and interviewing with what today I would call a boiler room chop shops, where they'd say, yeah, you can have a job, but you're going to make 600 dials a day. And you'll be lucky if you get a client. I really feel like my whole professional life happened by complete chance. I was playing in a charity golf outing with my dad and my uncle and my cousin who I worked with. This was in September of 2004. And I walked into the halfway house to use the men's room after probably having a few beers on the front nine at the same time as an advisor affiliated with our firm walked in. And I knew him a little bit. I knew him through the hockey community. I played in some adult hockey games with him and his brother. This is a guy who was 15 years my senior, so we didn't really have a relationship. We happened to be going to the bathroom at the same time, standing next to each other. And we knew each other well enough for him to say, hey, Jared, what are you up to? And I had maybe had enough beers where I looked at him and said, I'm looking for a job in finance. So he said, come see me at dinner. And I'd love to tell you a little bit about our firm and connect you with someone who was the hiring manager at the time. So I did. And long story short, that's the only job I've ever had after college. I joined that firm just a few months later, and I was given the opportunity to build a wealth management business. Again, whatever the heck that meant. I had no idea. I'm 22 years old. Building a wealth management practice sounded good, but I didn't really know what it meant. But what I was told it could mean was really attractive to me. I was told it's a very entrepreneurial business. It can become a lifestyle business where you'll have control. You'll have the ability to design who you work with, when you work, where you work, etc. And all of those things really appealed to me because of what I was exposed to by my father being a business owner. Mm-hmm. My father had the ability to be around, to be at field day, to go on field trips, to coach Little League, to not miss a game or a practice. And I can remember having conversations with the gentleman who was interviewing me saying that if you build a wealth management practice, you'll have those same flexibilities. You'll be able to coach. You'll be able to be around. You'll be able to prioritize your family, etc. So I said, sure, sign me up. What I didn't appreciate yet is that the career also came with, it could be very rewarding financially as well and give me opportunities and exposure to things that I never even dreamt were possible at 22 years old. But that's ultimately how things played out in a way that truly dramatically exceeded my expectations. But I want to, reemphasize that I took this opportunity because it gave me the opportunity to have a life like the life that my father lived, being around, being an entrepreneur, owning his own business. But this career is a little bit more financial upside, if you will. Our value proposition in our firm is to not necessarily promote or encourage a strategy or a idea. It's to really become a single point of contact for our clients, a little bit of a family office light, if you will. We often say that we are a family office type environment for people who typically can't afford to have a family office. And what does that mean? That means you've got a team of people that you're running everything through. Because what typically happens with most individuals from our perspective when we meet them, a lot of our clients are successful. They might have the best of all of those people, but they never had the time, the energy, or the wherewithal to invite all of those people to sit around one conference room table to discuss their economy. And as a result, a lot of really smart, successful people implement smart strategies, multiple intelligent strategies that are deemed intelligent or valuable in their own silo, but on the same game board could unintentionally create conflict or unintentionally erode wealth, right? So we play a role in our clients' lives where we really have a planning process where first trust has to be built. It's a relationship business. It always has been a relationship business. It always will be a relationship business. There's always concerns around artificial intelligence taking away any of our jobs. But wealth management is not a numbers and it's not an algorithm type business, although some of the money management companies that we partner with use a lot of technology. People trust us because of our relationship. So we build a relationship. We take them through a pretty comprehensive, confidential, fact-finding type conversation where I don't care, Adam, what the quantitative data is. I care about the qualitative data of the human being, right? What makes them tick? What motivates them? What concerns them? What worries them? What keeps them up at night? What they're working towards? The numbers are the numbers. That's the easy part, right? But really getting in and appreciating the stress and anxiety they have around work or their kids or their parents or whatever it might be. We spend a great deal of time in that fact-finding, data gathering conversation, and then we present. Could be 3 or 4 strategies, but it's really around making sure that the client's economy has what we consider structural integrity, right? Structural integrity is an engineering term that we apply to personal finance that simply suggests that we need to build your world, your financial world, so that there is limited risk of collapse when the things that we can't control actually happen. A financial plan can't be contingent on markets doing well, interest rates staying low, taxes staying low, me being able to work consistently, and we can't rely on things that we can't control. So we help clients build structural integrity so that their plan can be successful no matter what they're exposed to. And when we take that authentic approach, our conversations with our clients around should our account be getting 14% or 12% this past year, they matter a heck of a lot less. We're coaching our clients to save money, be smart, have a plan, and it's our job to remove worry, right? And remove worry so they can sleep at night. That's the real value of an advisor from my perspective, not necessarily rate of return.
So I'll give you, I'm going to open up a little my ignorance here. So the only advisors, quote unquote, I've ever had were like when I had what's the word, like T. Rowe Price and stuff like that, where I was just putting my money into things and nobody really ever advised me on anything. But I had some conversations and nothing was ever around things like I do now, like real estate and that type of stuff. But I'm talking to a guy right now who does wealth advisory, who owns real estate and all of this stuff. How do you view all of those outside of the normal stock market stuff? How do you have conversations about those in balancing their decision making on whether it should be something that's outside of the market or outside of, when I say the market, like stocks and bonds and mutual funds, that type of stuff, versus real estate or startups or now doing things like that?
Our firm is affiliated with a broker dealer, so we can only advise and encourage our clients to use registered investments, right?
Okay.
With that said, I want to put my clients in a position when they become privy to a unique opportunity that I didn't bring to the table. We can have a conversation around whether or not exposure to that asset class or that opportunity is appropriate. I can't vet, right? So Adam, if you were my client and you said, my buddy's got the opportunity he's building condos. Do you think it's a good investment? If you were asking me that, I would not be able to say, I think that is or is not a good investment. Yeah. What I would be able to say is based on the plan that we've created, exposure to that at this level with this amount of your assets, this savings rate, et cetera, may or may not be appropriate given everything else that's going on. But at the end of the day, my firm, myself as an advisor, we do fee-based planning occasionally. So those decisions, whether they deploy investments into assets under management with us or not, don't necessarily matter. We do generate a lot of revenue off of assets under management where we charge a fee to oversee the management of those assets. And we do implement a reasonable amount of insurance planning every single year. But our conversations with our clients are first and foremost around making sure that they're saving, that they're properly protected, that they've got the right exposure to different types of asset classes. And that sometimes includes this investments and assets with us and sometimes not with us. It's never siloed just to the strategy that they might be implementing with us.
Yeah, that
answers your question.
No, it certainly does, because I've always had in the back of my brain, because of the types of investments that I typically do, we've got stocks, bonds, mutual funds, and all that as well. But because of the types of investments I'm typically doing, talking to my buddy, and maybe we'll invest in this property or maybe we do these things, it's always about, guess I got to figure out all on my own and talk to my other buddies who are doing all of this to figure out how to vet it or figure out what makes sense for my long-term future. And I've done a terrible job of truly planning out what I want it to look like, the structure behind all of that, because that is something that should be done rather often. How often do you actually recommend folks revamp or I should say renew or refresh their financial future, what their picture is and how they want to, where money is going and how it's flowing?
So we're in touch with our clients pretty darn regularly, and it's usually we focus with our clients, me in particular. Obviously, there's 180 advisors in my firm. We have a firm culture. We have a firm direction. My focus is less around what do we want, what should you have in the future, and more around, are we doing the best we possibly can today? Because I think when we get focused too much on a conversation around what am I going to need in the future, the chances of us getting that right are like slim to none.
Yeah.
I joke all the time, Adam, do you remember 15 years ago, maybe ING, which became Voya, used to have those commercials on TV where the folks were walking around with their number Remember those conversations? He was like, what's your number? That was ING's commercial or marketing pitch. What's your number? I tell my clients all the time, I have no idea what your number is. Why? Because I don't know how old you are, Adam, but if you're 41 like me, you're not using your money. That number is 20, 25 years off into the future. I have no idea what your little hoverboard is going to cost. Right? I have no idea. I don't know what tax rates are going to be in the future. I'm willing to bet they're going to be higher than they are today, but I don't really know. I don't know what interest rates are going to look like. Even if I was having a conversation with somebody who retired 10, 15 years ago, I don't know what all their devices cost to be connected to the internet. We never would have planned for that, right? So rather than trying to figure out what the number is, let's optimize what it is that you can do today around saving, around making sure that you own the right types of assets that are going to allow you to extract the most benefit and value from the assets that you do accumulate. And that's why we focus so much more on savings rate than rate of return. I believe strongly that the rate at which we save is more important than the rate that we get on our investments that are currently on the balance sheet, because we can control it. That's my why. My why in life that I apply to how I parent, how I coach, how I interact with friends, etc., is essentially the more responsibility we take, personal responsibility we take in any situation, any relationship, the more satisfied we're going to be with the ultimate outcome. To dictate how things are going to go, we're only going to be left disappointed. The more responsibility that we take on that is reasonably appropriate, the better the experience is going to be. It's not, marriage isn't 50-50. It's 100% on me when I'm in those conversations. Let's not rely on things that we can't control. I don't know when the Fed's going to lower rates. I don't know what the market's going to do. I'm going to focus on the things that you can control that are going to give you the best odds for success, limit the impact of the things that you can't control, right? And block out those externalities as much as possible. I'm always promoting personal responsibility as much as possible. And I think it applies to parenting. It applies to finance. It applies to, certainly applies to my politics, which is a different podcast. My mindfulness, mindset, coaching, that's something that I did not really embrace early on in my career. And I was never exposed to it as a kid. But later on, more recently, let's just say the last 10 years or so, how we think and our mindset, and it changes everything. Paul Malella, again, one of your previous podcast guests, he's my coach because he works on my mind. I thought forever building a wealth management business simply meant more clients, wealthier clients, improve my skill. And those three things are important. That's our inventory and our skill and our conversion ratios, et cetera. Like any other business, those things are important, but how I thought about who I was and how I was showing up. And Paul helped tap into the confidence I think my father gave me as a young guy. Paul was able to pull it out years later in helping me appreciate what my business could become, the leader I was in my organization, the leader I could become in my community. It's all about mindset coaching. And we try to expose our kids to that now, right? I think it's The Mindful Athlete is a book that my daughter's reading right now that one of her coaches turned her on to. Visualization, and it's so empowering. It's so empowering to stay in a good headspace in any endeavor, whether you're coming off a bad shot on the golf course or showing up to a tryout. Having the right mindset is real important.
So what is your long-term vision then for the business, for what you have going on? Because you work on the agent side and you work in personal investment side. What is your long-term vision for both sides of that?
Yep. So the agent side, I've done since joining GoBundance, maybe 3-4 years ago, meeting with people, learning how to turn what was me running around with like a chicken with my head cut off into a business, into a more effective systems driven business. Into early on when I got into real estate, I was like, I want to do this to purchase. I get more excited about purchasing a fourplex that I'm going to hold long term more than, I just made a big sale and got a commission check, because that's like a deposit into the future, being a good steward of what you have, investing it, and eventually turning that into solid passive income coming in so I don't have to do this job, the day-to-day job. So the vision is definitely, I still love what I'm doing on the residential side. I'm able to delegate way more, and I've learned to do that. So I run a really efficient business that I actually provide better value to my clients than I used to because I'm not the one communicating on everything. And that just gets to be pretty impossible to do. And then using those funds to purchase real estate and investments. And once the teeter-totter switches to where it's like the investment income is starting to outweigh this income, then it makes sense to transition to let's manage the thing that's the biggest moneymaker and quarterback that more than the other thing.
Okay.
And then having a team, there could be transition out of being a little bit more picky choosy who I was working with and having the trusted team members take on other deals or things like that. So there's options I would have even if it was like, hey, the family's going to go overseas for 2 months. It's nice being a part of a team that you trust people to go, hey, this is Tom, and they're going to take over everyone on the most vertical income, which is the day-to-day helping people buy and sell homes.
Yeah. You mentioned that starters ago after joining GoBundance that you turned this into much more of a business and kind of straightened all that out. What did it look like before versus what does it look like now? And how did you realize you needed to make that adjustment?
What it looked like before would have been, I didn't have a full-time assistant. I was helping people. I was typing out similar messages to them once they get a house under contract. I'm then calling an inspector, linking them up, sending them the earnest money link to submit earnest money and connect the whole title team, and probably typing out too many things, whereas like I'm typing out the same thing. Use a template, use that. My notes is like full of templates for how I respond to certain things, starts of negotiations, things that I found that have worked, connections to lenders, all these different things. So getting into GoBundance, that was my first time investing in myself, paying the $10,000 to GoBundance and really doing that. I then soon after spent $30,000 for a 6-month coach in Trevor McGregor. And that was phenomenal just to start to play above the line in a lot of different areas of my life. I'll say as like paying a lot for a business coach / counselor, just going over daily habits and what are you doing and giving me permission to cut things out and to do these, just be more effective with time. So before it was just a little bit unstructured, still good business practices, but unstructured, to then hiring an assistant, figuring out what my most dark green dollar activities are, focusing more on those and filling my schedule versus the light green activities, which could be lots of things that you can delegate. And then also planting in what are my gold activities, like those come first priority, and that would be date night. Those are the immovable objects.
Yeah.
Going on a outing with the kids or something where if I miss a call during that time, that could have turned into a $10,000 this way or that way, or like at some point I'm establishing who I am and what my things are going to be. So those all since the start of GoBundance. Now it's not GoBundance fed me all that, but it's the people that are in GoBundance and making little shifts. They taught us we talked to one guy and you guys are crushing it for Remax. You should restructure how you do things with them. And that was an awesome way these little conversations can be earth-shattering differences in yearly income or how time management or some practical ways. And then it's been a huge blessing for business and family.
That's awesome.
And to vocalize and go, oh, this is what I'm dealing with, and have other people that are like, I'm running really hard too, and I'll vocalize what I'm dealing with.
Yeah. And we're all dealing with stuff. So our ability to be able to communicate it and work with each other is too many times we don't want to talk about what our we'll talk about the problems of, oh man, traffic was terrible on the way to work today. But we don't want to talk about the problems that are true problems, right?
Yep.
Traffic on the way to work is not the true problem, right? That's something that we want to complain about just to be complaining. And if you're the person that goes to the office and was like, man, my trip here was so smooth and easy, people, yeah, I would, because we're just in a world full of complaining. But when you're actually driving and talking about the problems that like, how do we increase the value of our day? The traffic is not going to increase the value of your day. So let's figure out the real problems on what's going on. But I love it. So as you're continuing to grow this out, then I'm assuming you're going to continue to keep building in the systems and the processes in there and separate. Are you planning to separate yourself more and more from the day to day by the sounds of things and put more and more systems and processes in place?
Yeah, I would say I'm still willing to like being my age and I still enjoy it. And my work is not, who did I hear? Daniel Ramsey, he was talking. It was like, that's very true. As I see the same thing. As I'm growing my business, you can't like peel back. You can't like minimize the time with the family or this, but you can minimize the work time and you can that's something that you can turn the dial. And if I get to work for 5 hours in a day, like I'm going to get what a normal person gets done in 10 hours or something like that. I'm just going to be maximized. So I would say I still will help people buy and sell. It's just, I feel like too skilled to really have that be, and it's a good producing activity that I still do enjoy. And the things that feel heavy to me, I'll delegate those things in the business, but I still like having the conversations with people and negotiating on their behalf and coming up with something they're excited with. So I don't know if I'll feel different in 5 years, but it's not like, I just want to start phasing out and not be client facing. At first, part of GoBundance is it's like always the conversation of how are you phasing out? And I had to swallow and be like, some things it doesn't make sense, nor do I have to yet.
Yeah.
Like we're still doing that and then we're adding on. It's just I can't add on other things and then also expect to have time for that too. So those need to be, but I'm still getting a little better at systems. My assistant, Mariah, is like amazing she'll come up with new templates for things or go, hey, this has been a sticking point. Let's smooth it over here. And then I got 15 guys on my team too that I can, as soon as I figure out a good answer to something that's been a problem for 6 or 7 years that I've been in the business, I can then, here's a good template to use to resolve this issue. And so that's fun to do that. And then it'll just be, just buying more real estate, trying to start to purchase like apartment buildings and stuff like that.
I know a guy that has a fund going there for, no, I'm just kidding. I was throwing back to the joke from earlier, but
yes.
No, I think that the phasing out conversation should always be around phasing out the things that suck your energy, right? If you could phase yourself out of the stuff that you don't like, because there's somebody out there that does like it, right?
Yeah.
There are some things that, I don't know, a ton of people that love changing poopy diapers. So there's only so much you could phase out. But there are certain things that if you just don't doing them, somebody else probably does.
Yeah.
So phase out of the stuff that you don't like so you can be more productive. I finished a book, I don't know, about a month ago at this point, but I can't remember what was the name of it. Buy Back Your Time, which I was a big fan of. I loved the book. And it's always something, it's similar sort of to Who Not How, but which is another phenomenal book as well. But like figuring out, okay, I need to put somebody in a position that really enjoys doing these things that I don't enjoy, because I'm going to be way more productive at all the stuff I do enjoy doing, because I don't have to do them. And if all I have to do, to your point, is 5 hours of work, but I can get done 10 hours of stuff, like what used to take me 10 hours, I can now do in 5 hours. Boy, that's my life a whole lot better now, right? That's a whole lot better now by getting rid of those other 5 hours of nonsense. Even if it was only an extra 2 hours of work in those 5 hours, but you were switching tasks all the time and your brain was taken up in different ways and all this stuff. And so now I've done 10 hours of work, but really only did 5 that actually made a difference. I would say make that the transition talk.
Yeah. And I pay for a lot of things now that I never thought I would pay for, but it's a direct, I pay for that and it happens, or I spend less time with the kids is just that. And then that getting a lot of things done in a short amount of time it's not overly challenging. Like it's not rocket science, but it's simple things like if I time block 40 minutes to do something and I'm not distracted, But the moment that I look at my phone, if I create that habit, it now takes my mind, 10 minutes to get back to the point that I was. So that's a quick way to make 40 minutes. But if I do 40 minutes of work, that's probably the same amount that I would do in 2 hours of I'm here, I'm responding to this email, take this call. Okay, I'm getting this person set up here, back to the email.
Yeah.
But if it's just time blocking, so that's all the getting better at those. It's not impossible is what I'm trying to say to actually accomplish what someone's doing now or more in far less time if they don't already have those practices in place.
God's gifted me with the ability to solve problems, which in turn turns into sales. And so I've been in sales for many years of my life, doing anything from selling solar panels and batteries here on island with Aloha Energy Savings, which is a solar sales organization that I started, to doing a new venture that I recently revitalized is Aloha Insights, which is basically helping merchants meaning business owners, local business owners, find solutions to their problems. And because I just have a passion to help people and solve problems, a lot of times I come into my friends who own businesses and say, hey, how can I help you? And sometimes it comes and turns into like a POS, which is a point of sale, credit card processing. Sometimes I'm connecting them to some of my partners that do social media marketing, financing and working capital, the bookkeeping to HR, different solutions. But it's been really fun because my heart has really been to, if I can help people and then bring value to their business, it's just been a great, fun experience within business to realize, hey, I think my business is to come alongside others and help them. And maybe that's helping them with solar. Maybe that's helping a business owner with marketing or credit card processing, saving some money, increasing their top line or bottom line by saving money, adding more revenue with marketing.
Tell me about your transition from being a pastor to running businesses and stuff. And are you still, obviously you're still involved in the church, but are you still involved to that level at all?
Yeah, it's been a journey. So I was at the church. I was working at a church for 2 years. And after the 2 years the funny thing is, looking back now, they were looking for entrepreneurial people to build ministries. And I didn't know how. I was always like a youth leader that I could do things, but I didn't know how to build a ministry. And so I feel like I felt like I failed, and I failed. Like I couldn't build a college ministry. And we basically got to a place where both the pastor and I realized maybe this isn't working out how we thought it would. And so we agreed to part ways. And at that point, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I started working at a restaurant just to make some money. And then I was teaching at a private school, substitute teaching Christian ed stuff. But when at that point I was married, we were already married. And looking forward, I was like, we want to start a family. And the restaurant lifestyle is not conducive to that, where I'm like getting off work at 11, 12 o'clock. And so what am I going to do? And I had a friend who had done Bible studies with, who was in the merchant service, credit card processing world. And he had his own kind of side, it was his business. He was a 1099. And he was like, hey, I'm starting a team. I think you would be great. And I was like, well, I don't know business. I thought I was going to be a pastor. I went to school to be a pastor. But I was at a point, I was hungry. I was young. I was going to start a family. I was like, I'll learn this. So I just jumped in and I started. The restaurant was closing and then they fired everyone and they said, everyone come back and reapply. And I was like, I'm not reapplying. You got to reapply. I'm like, nope, I'm done. And so I jumped and I did that. And I was able to, by God's grace, build a pretty decent sales career with that company.
Nice.
And then through that, because it was an outside sales position, I had a fair amount of flexibility as the years went by. As I became more proficient at sales and getting my numbers, I would have more time. So for a while, I was just attending, but eventually we got pretty heavily involved in the church again, where one of my buddies planted a campus. And because of my background, me and him and my wife and his wife and like a small core team launched a campus. And so at that point, I was thrust back into, I wouldn't say full-time ministry, but we were doing everything from leadership. My wife was running the kids' church. I was preaching once a month and doing different things with them and for them with the church. And so pretty heavily while I was still like doing my other job, I saw I was like, I wasn't getting paid by the church, but I was doing the things of the church, but I was able to like, make money here, and it was a cool blend for a season. And over time, God continues to just morph and shift me into different roles, supporting here and there. That was a great season. And now God's placed me in different roles to be able to help bridge the marketplace and the church a little bit, not completely, because they are different things, but really helping business owners recognize their call. And so one of the things that I'm really excited about, I just got one of my certificate for coaching, is helping coach leaders to identify their call and live purpose rather than just make money. And so I'm going to be looking to coach more people along those lines, is like, hey, you can be making fill in the blank, however much money, but is your life fulfilling? Do you feel like your life is purposeful in the things that mean and matter to yourself and to God? Because if not, we all know the saying, you can gain the whole world but lose your soul. What profit is that? What does it do? So I really want to help leaders, primarily entrepreneurs or people who are like really driven and focused, but are they also like living purpose and fulfilling lives, or are they just making money? And it's like, how do you, and so my heart is to coach people to live their purpose according to what their calling is. And that's really exciting for me and I feel like that's my call. And so do I feel like I'm ever going to get back into the quote pulpit ministry? I don't think so, unless God does a shift maybe. But right now I feel called to help leaders and entrepreneurs live their call, because not everyone's called to the pulpit, but everyone's called, and we are all called to live all what God's called us to do and be and impact. And so we need more people in the quote marketplace, because you got the church and marketplace, whatever, but people who are in business, who are living in a way that represents Christ, that is purposeful, that they love their family, and they are living in such a way that ultimately God gets the glory. Like if we're doing that, we are the church, we're living it. And so I feel like my current season in quote ministry, and it's funny because people wouldn't necessarily call it ministry unless it's in the church. So I'm like, fine, you don't have to call it a ministry, but for me, what it is helping raise the call in the entrepreneur leader space and help the leaders recognize, look, you still have a mighty purpose. Even if you're not preaching on Sunday, even if you're not the men's ministry pastor, you have a great call within the lane that God's given you. And I want to help that come alive and coach you along the way to live that purpose and really fulfill it. Because I believe God's equipped everyone uniquely, and not everyone's called to the pulpit ministry, but everyone's called to glorify him and make him big. And so that's my heart in terms of like how I've morphed from, I thought I was going to be in pulpit ministry for the rest of my life. And God shifted me into the business world. And then likewise, helping other business people recognize that you're still equally as important to the kingdom. It just looks a little bit different on Sundays in your day to day,
For sure. Yeah. And and I think that the same, I'd say for my dog is just going nuts over here. I don't know what he's got going on, but goodness gracious. But with our families, with our businesses, with our lives as a whole, like knowing that we're driving in the correct way with the right purpose, with the right focus on where God has us to be, I think is extremely important. There's so much emptiness in the world that why add to it? Why be empty yourself? Be focused on where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing, I think is extremely important for all of us to pay attention to. So I love what you're doing there. Have you heard, I can't remember his name right now. He's got like the Wealthy Way and Wealthy Kingdom and Wealthy everything. He's an entrepreneur. He recently, like last year, maybe the year before, started a mastermind, Christian mastermind for business owners, and that he's got like local meetups and everything. He's always has his hair a different color. He was a former baseball player. Why can't I think of his name? Anyways, he'd be awesome for you to connect with, because he's always looking for folks in a local area who are Christians looking to start like masterminds and not necessarily masterminds, but Christian ministries, small groups, and that type of stuff as an entrepreneur and like in person. And I initially had started that, but I started a small group with my church, and I never continued driving down the path of starting one with him, just because my schedule was just dreadful. But I love that you're looking at that passion and drive and trying to help people chase that down. I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again, is I built this whole future of what I thought our future was going to be, my wife, my family, everything, like all of this stuff, and never once talked to them about it. Like I built everything for my future, And it's similar that if we don't sit there and talk to God about where he wants us to be and we just start growing, it's not going to be as fruitful and you're not going to be as fulfilled. Like you're not chasing what he has for you and where he's going for you. I love that you're on that path and encouraging others to look that way.